How do you keep yourself engaged? They presented some proposals to the BBI team, and we'll also be looking at that, some of the proposals that they presented in order to entrench the role and functions of the deputy governors. So anyway, let's start the show where we always begin. We have seen a spike in numbers this weekend. Fellow Kenyans, in the last 24 hours.
In the last 24 hours, 379 cases, which then easily tipped Kenya over the 10,000 case mark. And from all indications, this is likely to rise. It's likely to keep rising from what we see so far. So Kenya now stands at 10,105 cases with 185 deaths. That is what we're looking at. Increasing. We knew that it was going to increase. Many questions now are popping up that was it the right time to open with the knowledge and information that the caseload was going to increase? Was it the right decision that was made? So, with so many things happening at the same time, now with public hospitals then ceasing corona or COVID-19 tests for anybody who comes, with the mass exodus that we see of people leaving the Nairobi metropolitan area and going to the rural areas. In addition to that, we also see that there's a shortage of tests in the country. I mean, there always was one, but now it's even more. As well as Kenya not being able to reach the 250,000 tests that they wanted to have done by the end of June. So there are very many things out that are affecting this. We knew that these numbers would rise, and we're likely to see them continuing to rise. 20% is what we saw on Saturday, was it Friday? With a very few number of cases of tests having been done, and a very high number of those tests then now turning positive. I believe the number was at 19.5. No.
Absolutely not.
Nothing.
In fact, so yesterday we had the highest ever number of samples tested or announced, 7,050. But very many people are saying, so this 7,050 includes a backlog that has been there over the week. You know, there are very many people who had provided their samples and their results hadn't come out. So very many days later, so the results are coming out yesterday. But also looking at 379 confirmed cases out of 7,050, this is about 5%. So it's still just fluctuating left, right,
so
and center.
how
It was at
exactly,
20% on Friday.
So what is it that we are saying that has contributed to these numbers? Because if we don't have more test kits, how do we know that these numbers are increasing? Are people presenting with symptoms? And if they are there more people presenting with symptoms so that when they are tested, you then find that they are COVID positive? What exactly happened?
It's a combination of those, CT, because there's some people who are presenting themselves. I mean, I gave you the example, just one example of, an Uber driver who was quite worried, took his customer to hospital because they were presenting with symptoms, So it's a combination. People for whom the Ministry of Health has decided to do testing for, and then people who are presenting themselves to hospitals with symptoms and then having been found positive.
Why I ask is, if indeed we have a shortage of kits, so we're not testing as many people as we would want to, and yet the numbers are growing, then it begs the question, what if then we had enough kits to test?
Yeah.
What are we likely to see?
Yeah. What kind of numbers would we be having?
Right
now we're at 10,000, maybe it would be at 20,000.
Yeah.
With 215,000 total number of samples tested so far. 215,000 in how many months?
4
months.
Do you know what is of interest? Florida has tested and has recorded probably the highest number of infections per day, 15,000 per day. They went to the 5, the 7, now it's 15. Now, I'm not saying that we are doing better because we haven't reached that number. But what I'm concerned about is what has led to those numbers getting to where they are.
But just look at what happened in Florida. I mean, everybody wanted, the summer months came beckoning and everybody wanted to be on the beach. Everybody wanted to be out. Everybody wanted to be eating out, doing whatever it is that they wanted to do. And they went ahead and did that. I mean, it's the summer in the States and everybody wanted to be out. But then what happened as a result of that? Look at the countries around the world now who opened up and then closed. I'll give Nigeria, for example. Schools were to open and then the federal government on Friday made an announcement and said absolutely not, because we're seeing a spike in cases. India, the same thing. Ghana, the same thing. I mean, it's Sweden, the same thing.
Of interest,
New
but
Zealand,
Sweden never locked
Madagascar.
down. Sweden didn't lock down.
No, they didn't lock down. But now,
They
you
didn't
can
lock
imagine
down.
they're taking more severe measures now than they had previously.
But they haven't locked down.
No, they haven't.
Their children have still been going to school. You see, yes, if you look at what's the numbers in Sweden and you look at their closest neighbor, say Denmark, who actually initiated a lockdown, you will find that the figures are really not that different. But there's a difference here. There was nothing alarmingly recorded about infection among school-going children
No.
or in their homes. Nothing alarming, that's one. Two, because of that open society, that, you see, the thinking was they didn't want to interfere with their people's freedom as it was.
Right.
Their people have become more disciplined. So it's not the government who have initiated the discipline.
It's the people themselves.
It's the
who
people from the beginning.
who have determined this is how we're going to behave. We don't need the government to be telling us.
Yeah.
They've given us the indication. We know what should be done. We're doing it.
It's interesting because that was what the government's plan of action was. Because they're also coming from a place of governance whereby they're not allowed to force people into any kind of action, as is determined by their constitution. But at the same time, there was the social, basically the government willing the people to do this. And they interestingly went ahead and said, all right, this is what the government has suggested. It was a firm suggestion, but we're going to go ahead with it, you know?
They followed it.
Yes, they did.
Social capital by the government. There's somewhere you were heading with this city, asking about what is causing the increase in numbers. What exactly is the situation on the ground? Are we seeing more and more people presenting themselves with the symptoms, coming to hospital, saying, and then the medical professionals deciding to test them?
Eric, willy-nilly. You see, you have cottoned in to the way I ask my questions. It is this, pause for a moment and just look at the surge in numbers.
Yeah.
And we are talking about right across our counties and more so in Nairobi. And yet we have a situation where people are actually leaving.
Yeah.
Now, it could be attributed to, one, the opening up as we considered it was understood by people that all restrictions have now been removed. So we can just crowd as much as we like. We don't have to wear a mask. We just go about our business as we did before. That's number one. Number two, my concern is the rural areas that had recorded very low numbers, okay? The moment you have an influx of very many people, essentially what you're saying is you're moving the large populations of people, all right, from the urban centers to the rural areas. Now, let me be specific. The demographics of the people who have suffered immensely from COVID are those whose daily employment was perhaps what you call a daily employment, and they got daily wages.
Yep.
It ended. So survival now became a really tricky issue. There were those who just lost their jobs because the factories or the industries they worked in had slowed down. Now, many of these people live in the areas that by necessity are usually crowded. So they are decongesting.
Yep.
And so they are going to the rural homes in droves. The process of going itself will cause infections because they're going to crowd these vehicles.
Yes.
Okay? Then they will arrive home. Now, I am looking at how we will have... that's why I started with the word willy-nilly. We will have inadvertently opened our rural areas to COVID infection. This is where my thinking was going. And we will have done so in large numbers. I was going to use the word quantities and I realized I'm talking about
people.
human beings, yes. So large numbers. Now this, if you ask me, is what you now call institutionalizing the epidemic. So there's no safe zone as such.
No.
I think it's also important to note that within just 1 week of reopening, these numbers that we are seeing calling a surge and all is not as a result of the opening.
No, it's
No.
not.
We still haven't been able to start detecting the effects of reopening. Because, I mean, people who have gone outside Nairobi, testing outside Nairobi is not happening as...
In many places, it's not happening, period.
Yeah, it's not happening at all. So we still haven't been able to catch those numbers. However, we are seeing a number of people who are going and seeking care in Nairobi and the neighboring counties increasing. We are seeing the number of people who are seeking extensive, what do you call it? Intensive care increasing as well. The people who are in ICU on COVID is increasing around the country. So it's a worry. It's something for that'll cause quite some concern.
Eric, think of what you're saying and look at it in terms of what if, these are the numbers that we're seeing predominantly in Nairobi.
Yep.
Now, what if these numbers move? Because they will be exported.
They will.
And as you say correctly, we haven't determined the full effects of COVID. That is really what I consider to be genuinely worrying.
We will see what happens as this unfolds. We will be looking at the newspapers. The Nation has given a lot of coverage today on COVID-19. The Standard as well has given quite some coverage on COVID-19 and the government's response to this so far and reopening and the effects of reopening. And basically, if you look at both newspapers, you're seeing a story that's talking about a need to reverse those measures that were taken by the president. We'd like you to read the newspaper with us, star 550 star 2 hash. That is star 550 star 2 hash. And on your Safaricom mobile phone with only 20 shillings worth of airtime on your mobile device, you'll be able to access the Standard newspaper today. And we can give you 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime if you answer a question that we're going to ask shortly. So just for now, we want you to read the Standard. Star 550 star 2 hash. You don't need to sign up. In fact, you don't need any data charges. You can even switch off your Wi-Fi and switch off your data. You will not incur any data charges on this. Good morning, 17 minutes after 6.
All right, let's look at what it has in store for this Monday morning. Looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 13. A chance of rain very high with highs of 22 and lows of 12 today. It's mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 13 degrees. Thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 20 and lows of 12. Thunderstorms also forecasted for Nakuru, and at 13 degrees currently we'll see a high of 21. Taking a look then in Eldoret, high of 18 today with thunderstorms also forecasted for not too far from now. Taking a look into Kisumu, where it's 19 degrees and mostly cloudy. Rains expected later with highs of 25 and lows of 18. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 15 degrees. Thunderstorms for later, highs of 23 and lows of 15. Light rain showers already coming down in Malindi at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24 with partly cloudy conditions in the afternoon. 29 degrees the high and lows of 23 in a mostly cloudy Mombasa this morning. 18 degrees in Kampala. We'll see rain later on with highs of 26 and lows of 17. Let's take a look into Dar es Salaam, where it's shining. 21 degrees. The sun is going to be out the whole day. Highs of 31 and lows of 21. Very chilly in Joburg this morning at 2 degrees. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of -1 today. In Lagos at 24 degrees, it's partly cloudy. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 23. We'll take a look at what that looks like later. For now, in Paris, it's clear skies at 17 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 16. It's also clear in London at 14 degrees, partly cloudy conditions to follow later with highs of 24 and lows of 13. And we're going to wrap things up in New York, where it's still Sunday night, right around 10 p.m. Cloudy conditions, however, and they will wake up to thunderstorms, experiencing a high of 32 and lows of 23.
Two minutes after 6, this is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live streaming. Live streams up Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. City Muga today.
Pure golden sound and good talk. 94.4 Spice FM.
Matokano ya mto itasikizwa na shura.
Slander by the stream
will be heard by the frogs. Yes. It's a Mozambican saying. Happenings, dwelling place, effects, proximity. We will unearth it as we continue.
Okay, that's an interesting one from Mozambique. We'd like you to read the standard newspaper on your mobile device, Safaricom mobile device. Just dial *550*2#. That's *550*2#. It brings you a message, and you open that message. It has a link. When you click on the link, it'll give you 3 options. You can either subscribe to just read today's paper at 20 shillings, or you can subscribe newspaper for the week or for an entire month. Make your choice. But if you just do today, it's just 20 bob, and 20 bob worth of your airtime will be taken. But we're giving you a chance to recoup that by winning 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Go to page 8 of the Standard, and there's a story here that has a headline: Landlord welds mother and baby in house over rent. Police in Nakuru were yesterday forced to break into a house to free a mother and her 18-month-old sick baby. This was after the landlord ordered the agent to weld the steel door of the house for failing to pay rent arrears. The house was locked with the family inside, forcing the police to break the window to rescue Rhoda Makoha and the baby. The mother of 5, who lost her job due to coronavirus, was forced to call the police to rescue her. So this lady, Rhoda Makoha, basically was telling the story and saying she has she has a business near Egerton University main campus in Joro. Since the university closed, she has not been able now, of course, to earn a living because the business depended on the student community. And since then, she has run into rent arrears amounting to a certain amount. And that's the amount that we wanted to tell us. How much was the rent arrears? And she says, so I have lived in this same house for the last 6 years. I have never fallen short of paying my rent on time. This one time, I'm facing this problem, and I've told my landlord, understand, this is the situation. Landlord had none of it, ordered the agent to go and weld the steel door with the mother and the child inside. The children, other children were playing outside, and those ones were rescued by the neighbors. Basically, they just went to stay with the neighbors.
It's a little too much, don't you think?
It's excess.
Yes, I mean...
It is excess. It's on page 8 of The Standard this morning. Landlord welds mother and baby in house over rent. And the question is, how much was the rent arrears? It's right there on the first paragraph. 0719-012-600.
You know, the issue of rent arrears has now been overtaken by what may appear to be a criminal activity. Because I would assume that if you have a tenant with whom you have an understanding on a contract and you want to evict them, there are ways that the law permits you to do so.
To do so.
Yes.
There's certain things that now, by your action in attempt to get that rent or whatever it is that you were seeking for, then you essentially break the law. There's certain rights that you take away, basic rights, which is individual and her children are privy to, that you then take away.
Imagine.
I mean, it's bothersome.
It's a crazy one. Other story that you can see.
Front page of The Nation today, waiting to explode is what the headline is. Strategy, I am not sure about that first word, but okay. As numbers soar, it's impossible to effectively test, trace, and isolate infected people. 2, exodus to rural areas. No measures to contain spread of infections from city dwellers going home. This is what we are seeing. We're not able to measure those numbers because it hasn't quite unfolded. It's likely to in the coming weeks. Testing hitches. Government falls short of its own target to test 250,000 people by June. Counties unprepared. Nearly half the counties yet to meet the minimum level of preparedness. And like we said, there's full coverage that has been given to this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. A number of stories covering this. Also, the fact that the numbers of COVID-19 cases in the country continue to rise. And it says Kenya is now widely exposed to the virus, as though it was not before. Lifting the lockdown may have eased the pressure on the economy, but it has created a situation in which the infections could spike rapidly, crippling the health system. A day after Kenya's COVID-19 cases crossed the 10,000 case mark, President Uhuru Kenyatta's June dilemma over 2 competing rights is now unfolding, with numbers pointing to a possible health crisis. While Kenyans are now free to move about and fend for their families, the virus, now at the community phase of infection, is spreading fast in towns and villages. Now it's been reported that in towns and villages, they're realizing more cases than they had before. Could have been something that was latent. I don't think it's as a result of the exodus, however. Since last Monday's lifting of the cessation of movement orders in Nairobi, Mombasa, and Mandera, the country has recorded over 1,562 cases, its highest within a 1-week period, with Friday topping at 474 cases. Put this into perspective, at the start of the pandemic in March, 1,419 samples were tested, with 78 turning positive. In April, Kenya saw 328 positive cases from 19,000 samples, while in May, it recorded 1,615 positive cases with 57,527 samples. As at the end of June, the country has done over 90,000 tests, with 4,049 of these turning positive. As the cases rise exponentially, will the lifting of these measures really hold? That's the question. That's the story. Is the worst yet to come? From lessons around the globe, and questions are being asked.
There's a lot that's really hitting us, and Andrew Kipkemboi, the Standard Associate Editor for Partnerships and Projects, has actually penned it today and says COVID-19 is exposing our terrible lies and rot. This is where our government had said some things, and then we are caught up in those lies. Strategies that were basically very good on paper but not being implemented. I've even seen a story there among the stories in the nation where the CS for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, has been asked this question. He says, can we just, why don't we now focus your questions on people's personal responsibility? No. Not everything on government is negative,
Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to scapegoat that. They're not this time, unfortunately.
Testing capacity not improved. Number of healthcare facilities that can handle COVID-19 not improved significantly. Lockdown and social protection for the people not done. Now being forced to reopen because you lacked a social protection plan, and now this is what we see. It's basically exposing us over
Eric,
and over
they may
and over
even have
again.
a plan, but unfortunately, typically of what the government historically has been seen to do,
Yeah.
it tends to begin and end with the talk. And very little trickles down in terms of action. When it does, it's not something you can rely on to be there for the perpetuity of the condition that you're fighting. It's in hits and starts and spats, and somewhere in between there'll be a change of direction. I mean, it's a moving target at the best of times.
Yeah.
Okay, and a case like this one of COVID is straightforward. It exists. We know it exists. You can test it. There are ways of ensuring that you protect the citizenry. How exactly would the Minister of Health want us to protect ourselves?
Right.
If you listen to commentaries on countries where they have actually brought about this issue of self-isolating, it first of all is predicated on the fact that you'll have more than one room
Yep.
where you're genuinely isolated. The rest of the family just gets on with their business. A large number of people whom we have populating, say, the city of Nairobi, live in one
Live
room.
in one room.
Yep.
And we cannot assume that it is one individual in this one room. This is one room that then houses that individual and their family members.
Yes.
Spouse, children, extended family. It
Yep.
sounds crazy, but that is actually what it is.
Yes, you actually
That is
get
what
the
it
impression
is.
that people sleep in that house standing.
Yep.
Yes, but the point is this: you have a situation where what is being suggested is not practical.
Or possible.
It can't happen.
It's not the way to go.
No,
No.
it's not. It's simply not practical.
And this is where we keep talking about the fact that information then should feed decisions. Because if you're aware that this is the housing situation of so many people in the country, then the decision that you make after that for care of COVID should not then lean on the fact that they don't have the space in their homes. Come on. I mean, it just seems as though 1 + 1 should equal 1 in this case, but it clearly doesn't. You cannot ask people to maintain these protocols of home care when you know for a fact one of the requirements.
It's going to be impossible to actually do it. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take another quick break. Take a look at traffic. We continue the conversation. Remember, we're asking you to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. There's a story on page 8 of the Standard this morning. It's about a lady whose house was welded. Landlord welds mother and baby in house over rent. And the story is on page 8 of the Standard. How much was the rent arrears? 0719 012 600. Your chance to win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. Good morning.
All right, Monday morning, and we already know that there will be some heightened levels of traffic this morning by virtue of the fact that it is a Monday. All right, Juja Road to and from Outer Ring, Thika Road, traffic is flowing through very well. Outer Ring roundabout, now if we look at that roundabout specifically, started building up as early as 5:30 this morning, and we're likely to see that it will cloud up just some more. Komarok Road to Outer Ring also, as it joins there, it's flowing, but it's a bit slow. There is no traffic on Jogger Road whatsoever right now, leading either towards industrial area or then coming out towards the CBD. Nothing major to report at this point. Taking a look then on Thika Road in and outbound, it is building up quite quickly this morning already. We'll take a look at that in a short while and see how that has added on later. We expect to see that there will be more traffic in about half hour or so. So if you've not gotten out, you need to anticipate that. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. So we want to see where you might be stuck or where it's flowing smoothly for you. And we can share that information with everybody else.
classic soul,
We are looking at
R&B,
newspaper
smooth
headlines
jazz,
this morning.
neo soul,
This is a
and
Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. And the lead headlines in the Standard this morning are, well, it's like a split of two. The top one, it's spies versus bureaucrats in the new battle to control money laundering probe. The multi-agency team responsible for the president's anti-corruption campaign has split into rival camps over the control of investigations and seizure of ill-gotten assets. This is given some page 2 and page 3 in terms of the fight against corruption. And it's pitting the spies are the ODPP, I mean the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, the CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Twalib Mbarak, and also the Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai. These are people who have worked at one time or the other in the spy agency, with the spy agency. And then the other people on the other side are the Attorney General and the Assets Recovery Agency Director, Muthoni Kimani, and also the DCI, Mr. Kinoti George. So basically the story is saying, so there's a tug of war between these two. Haji and EACC are isolating Kinoti as they fight for more cloud rages.
I mean, I've read this article, but is it really a tug of war? You see, what this appears to me, remember, this task force is not as though it existed from independence. It's something that was set up recently. This is what happens when people are trying to figure out how best to work. Because their functions are clear and they're different. Each one has a task. But the purpose, I think, of working as a unit was so that no one sort of like works against the efforts of the other, so that they can all be in agreement as to the way forward. So even as you plan making sure that your plan complements the work of the other arms of government. That, to me, does not appear like a fight.
The problem emerges when any of the parties wants to claim credit for everything. Remember, immediately this war on corruption was reignited by the president appointing a new DCI and a new DPP. And before that, the EACC had not got a new boss, right? It was all appearing like it's Kinoti versus Haji. I mean, Kinoti and Haji working together to fight corruption. And questions started emerging. So why do we need the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission anyway?
Valid question.
If the DCI is doing all the job. And then the EACC got a new boss and they also now came up with their own strategy, and now they've been working and pushing harder and harder. Now, this is where the questions emerge. So who's fighting corruption?
They're all fighting corruption.
Is it EACC? Is it DCI?
No, they're all fighting corruption.
Who should be getting the credit?
Well, I mean, we heard a couple of days ago that they're all trying to, work together in this thing.
Trying to work together is true. And that's where now these cracks start emerging.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
But
It's interesting that just 3 days later, then now this opens up. After they said, you know what, we understand that the end goal, and we heard Mr. Ndemo was here, and he said, the end goal for all of us here is to make sure that we're fighting corruption, number one. Number two, the results of this fight are clearly seen by everyone. And in order for us to do this, everybody has their role, but they also need to come together to show that the result that we're actually bringing forth was as of equal contribution or adequate contribution from each party.
Adequate is a good word. It doesn't have to be equal.
It doesn't have to be adequate.
No,
It's
it
better,
actually doesn't have to be. Yes, you see consider. What
Can we take a pause?
Yes.
I can see Milka Owor has called in and she'd like to answer this question to win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. Good morning, Milka.
Good morning.
How are you? How is Umoja, Nairobi?
Weather is a bit cold. It's a chilly morning.
Muko na umoja na amani.
Yes.
Very good. You've accessed your Standard on your mobile device?
Yes.
Now, you've gone to page 8. There's a story on the landlord who welded the mother and the baby in a house of a rent in Nakuru.
Yeah.
Very sad story. And the question you're asking this morning is, how much was his rent arrears?
Yeah, the rent arrears was 10,000.
Just 10,000 shillings.
Yes.
And for that reason, the landlord decided to ask the agent to go ahead and not just lock, but weld the house with a mother and child inside.
Yeah, a young child indeed.
Indeed. So first of all, Milka, congratulations because you win 1,000 shillings worth of airtime. This comes
Thank
to
you.
What do you make of that story when you read it?
It's sad, heartbreaking, especially for us mothers. Yeah.
It is indeed very hard, and we hope that justice will prevail in this particular case.
Amen.
Milka Ward, congratulations. You win 1,000 shillings worth of free Safaricom airtime. Speak to our producer, John. He'll take your details.
All right.
Well, like you said, it's sad, especially because she put herself in the shoes of that particular mother. And just imagine, so what would I do anyway? Yeah, what would I do anyway? So back to the issue of this spies versus bureaucrats' new battle to control money laundering. You're saying this is a battle that shouldn't exist.
I'm saying it's not even a battle because it's more a question of each one has a role specified by law, and this is them trying to figure out how best to work together. Case in point, the Anti-Money Laundering Commission, okay? They have very specific rules, and it's rated. In fact, the director, Mudhoni Kimani,
This is the Assets Recovery Agency.
yes, exactly. She states very, very clearly what the role of her agency is and what it's premised on in law. Now, she says that as far as she's concerned, the DCI are the people who have the mandate to be able to actually investigate and determine what would fall under the purview. And in the same breath says, you see, the EAC that doesn't come into this because their job should be corruption and bribery. I'm thinking, yes, but pause. I mean, it's this corruption and bribery that leads to the issue.
The assets that you
the
recover.
assets that you're recovering
Yes,
are
exactly.
because of corruption.
Yes, exactly. So how then do you separate? And the EACC also has investigative powers.
Yep.
They can investigate. And they have something that the DCI doesn't have. They even have a court. So all I'm saying is that it's clear that each one wants to be able to ensure that the other one doesn't eclipse them. So they're positioning themselves to say, my role is distinct and unique, and it must be this. It is distinct and unique, and those who crafted those positions understood this. That's why, yes, they don't have one body fighting corruption. You have several. This one focuses on just making sure they get hold of these things. But it has to be passed on. The ODPP has a role. They look at the case, they figure, can this one actually go to court?
Let's take it to court.
Yes,
Let's,
so fine.
Let's prosecute.
It's true, and you
Yes.
think of it like a relay. If somebody starts, you hand on the baton to somebody else. At the end of the day, you're all standing on the podium, and it's a
Yes.
collective feather in the cap. So, I mean, it's something that it has to be looked at collectively.
Here
It
is,
cannot be
I
one
think
agency that
the
can do it
issue here
alone.
emerges because we have two investigative agencies, and that is where we have an issue. You see, the Assets Recovery Agency will look at what has been presented to it. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will go all out to investigate the same way DCI will go all out to investigate. So, for example, if you're talking about any of these institutions where the DCI has gone there and they find that ESCC officers were here last week, so who am I responding to? You're asking me for this file. These guys come and ask
That's
me
a
for this
problem of
file.
coordination.
Who do I give
Yeah,
or not
who
give?
do I
Yeah,
give or
it
not
can
give?
be. It can be coordinated. And I
That's a
think
problem
so.
of coordination. Remember, DCI also deals with criminal matters. The Anti-Corruption Commission doesn't deal with those ones. They're specific. Corruption, bribery, specifically. For the longest time, remember, we had an Anti-Corruption Commission that was essentially a lame duck. Okay? So the DCI could hog all the glory if they wanted because they're the ones who did everything. Now, remember, in this period of time that we are speaking of, there's been a lot of streamlining of these agencies. For instance, look at what ODPP said. Look, most prosecutors in the country were policemen. They altered that and said, no. For this thing to work, all right, this is what we need to do. Let's ensure that the people who act in this capacity of prosecutors have this sort of qualification and come from this sort of background, all right? Now, part of the reason why the policemen were prosecutors, remember, they are the ones who would investigate the case, and they to take it to one of their own who had been trained in the matter of prosecution. And some people felt, this one,
Napana.
no, there's going to be a conflict of interest here.
Yep.
Let somebody else handle this. You take it up to this point, leave it, let somebody else handle it. All these things that we're speaking about have undergone an evolutionary process. We didn't always have all these bodies. We just had CID, full stop.
And that was it.
So even for now, they'll get to a point where they'll it's a jostle for the jostle for influence also comes with the jostle for resources. I mean, if you do not show the work that you do, then you will not be able to justify why you're asking for the kind of money that you'll be asking for. So this is it. I've got to show that I'm the one who has won these cases. I'm the one who has investigated these cases that have gone to court, so that next year I can ask for a higher budget. It's a tough one. Let's talk about the Kenya Ports Authority, right? The KPA has unveiled a new portal that is very, very informative. And the purpose of this portal is basically just to give you information so you can understand how the KPA operates, the kind of operations that are there, what you need to know, the tariffs that are there, and it's called Captain Cargo.
Right. So, yes, a new platform where you can get all the information that you do need, making sure that, you're aware of what's going on when your cargo is either leaving or coming from, wherever it is around the world as it gets into the country. And so we'll be looking at importing and exporting combined today, and the different tips that you can have, at your fingertips, basically, for this entire process.
All right, so that will be coming up. Remember, you can access Captain Cargo by just going to www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. Cargo is Kargo. Good morning, it's 6:45. It's a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, in the next hour, we'll be speaking with the Senate Majority Whip, Murango Kanata. He'll be here. He'll be telling us what the senators are about to meet today to discuss this contentious issue of sharing of revenue. As we look at other headlines in the papers this morning, MCAs to grill Ngilu ahead of impeachment motion. So the MCAs got a reprieve last week when the court decided that it is not going to stop them from continuing to debate the impeachment of the governor, Charity Ngilu. And now they have written to her and told her this is to notify you the motion dated June 16th calling for the removal of the governor by impeachment shall be considered by the county assembly between July 15th and 17th. And a letter addressed to the governor signed by Speaker George Ndoto reads, I'm writing to invite you to appear before the assembly on the 15th of July at 10 a.m. to respond to the allegations as contained in the impeachment motion. So she has a date with them. The day after tomorrow, Wednesday. She's going in there at 10 a.m. As these wheels are turning. These wheels are turning, yes. Just like we saw in the case of Kirinyaga, which is now attempting and flopping to get into some mediation between the MCAs and the governor. This is also another one of those.
Who initiated the mediation?
Well, it's not quite clear. Because there was a memo issued by the governor who had said, we have considered and we agree to have the following personalities to join the mediation team. And apparently the MCA said, no, we don't want anybody in that team to be in the mediation. So it's one of those that's just not moving anywhere. It's getting to a point where you have to recognize who we are as the assembly.
Daggers have been drawn.
Yes. It is. You've got to recognize who we are. Another headline, no.
Yeah, sure. As we talk about mediations, KenGen holds talks with Kenya Power as a force majeure looms. Electricity producer KenGen in the business today says it's in talks with Kenya Power amid reports that the latter intends to declare a force majeure on power contracts due to a drop in demand occasioned by the COVID-19 scourge. A force majeure is a common clause in agreements that essentially frees both parties from any liability or obligation when an extraordinary event or circumstance beyond the control of either parties takes place. KenGen Chief Executive Ms. Rebecca Miano told the nation that even though they had not received any communication of the intended declaration of force majeure, they recognized the difficult situation currently prevailing. Power purchase agreements are between KenGen and KPLC, and the parties are engaged in negotiations on how best to address the force majeure occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. And if they don't, it's likely that there will be some issues. Cabinet Secretary for Energy Charles Katera 2 weeks ago said that the ministry had resorted to this after consumption plunged with the closure of factories and hotels in the wake of the pandemic. We may not be able to meet the take or pay conditionally some of the requirements, and there is need that they come back to the negotiation table to enable us reach an agreement. So the two are at loggerheads, and it's interesting. Power plays in the power sector.
Never ceases. Yeah, it's power for power.
Yep.
Who's got the power? Switch on your power.
True. But talking of power, we had this delightful issue that seemed to be threatening to boil over regarding certain committee positions between Jubilee, well, Uhuru's side of Jubilee, and their new partner, or ODM. And there's a report that they have arrived at a consensus, which has been reported as ODM gets their wishes. You see, I read this and I wondered, is it that we, as the media, decided to dramatize this whole thing, or was it just something that they were in the process of discussing and trying to determine the best way forward? But you see, what made it even more discussable in the light of the dramatization was that at the bone of contention level were the issue of some people who were in those committees who was supposedly very pro-Ruto or Ruto allies. So now, according to the report that we now read, is that their removal is imminent and only to be replaced by ODM luminaries. But this is, to me, the normal horse trading that happens in politics. Because you do want people who you feel are on your side heading certain positions so that when you make decisions, you are assured that the direction you wanted to take, it will take.
You're asking whether the media is over-dramatizing this issue.
Yes.
Listen, CT, they've got to a point where the majority leader of in the National Assembly, Amos Kimunya, withdrew the names that had been tabled. Tells you that there was some disagreement.
Yes,
and the disquiet was not coming from fellow Jubilee. The disquiet was coming from ODM.
I'm asking, is that not a normal process? People table. It wasn't. When you table, is it a fait accompli?
Yeah, and when it's reported, it's reported as normal. So it's not a dramatization. It's basically a report of this is what was happening. There was a standoff.
It wasn't just reporting. Reporting would not talk about arm twisting. That doesn't sound to me like a disagreement. Arm twisting is not now. You know, you've gone beyond just disagreeing. You've gone into employing a certain ploy to make sure you ensure you get what you want.
By hook or crook.
Precisely.
Maybe that's what they did.
That's the drama.
That's what they did, probably.
And as I said, I'm raising the issue and I'm asking, was the drama clearly representative of what was actually happening? Or was it just a process that was taking a little long and discussions needed to be had? That's it. That's all I'm saying.
So how are those discussions being had?
It doesn't appear.
Because initially discussions were still being had, all right?
Yes.
But the names that eventually ended up on the floor of the House are not names that made one side happy.
But
right?
from what I've seen of these discussions, that's what tends to happen.
What normally happens is that one side will not be satisfied with whatever is brought to the floor.
Which means that those discussions did not bear fruit. Which means that those discussions that we want to sit here and assume that were very amicable and they had reached a conclusive agreement had not reached an agreement.
I'm not saying that.
So when Kimunya is tabling a list and then he has to withdraw that list, it tells you that there's something that's happening in the background.
See, whenever you have a bill that has been taken to the president and he refuses to assent to it, there's nothing dramatic about it. Meaning, as far as I'm concerned, there's something the president wants changed.
Yep.
Says, I don't like ABCD.
Yep.
But now, if in the reporting, it then says something like, the president damns the bill that was brought before him. Now, that's drama. Okay? All he has said is, guys, could you look into this and this and this and this and then fix, then bring it back. Now, I am saying that something similar happened. Okay, guys, you've brought these names. No. Please go and look at these names again, all right? They don't actually represent what we had agreed on to begin with.
There you go. And that's where the drama is. We agreed on something, and then that's not what you've brought. And we are saying we are sitting here saying that we are not going to accept those names. That is where the drama is.
I'm
This
asking
is
the
Kenya's
question.
politics.
Is that drama really? I'm saying that's a normal process
But that is
or
what
such
I'm-
procedures.
but that's what I'm saying.
Or
That's
you're
where
calling
the-
it drama.
That is where the
In the
drama
normal,
is.
so what Eric is saying in this case is that the normal proceedings carry with
dramatic.
the tint of drama anyway.
That is where the drama is. I mean, otherwise it will not be any juicy politics. They have to play this.
Got
if
it.
if they went in and just agreed, there would be no drama. Page 11 of the Standard. Cleaner fired by Chinese firm over foul smell loses case. This is a story of a cleaner who was kicked out by her employer over a claim of emitting a bad smell. And she has lost a dispute in the labor court despite him snubbing the case. The story is about Zarika Adoyo, whose work was to ensure everything in her employer's office was spotless and sparkling. She was, however, thrown out by Tai Shunjun in 2013, who claimed that he could not stand her foul smell. She subsequently sued Shunjun alongside his company, Shehe Group, arguing that despite working diligently and faithfully, he unfairly showed her the door on the 15th of August 2013. She took the matter to court, to the Labour and Relations Court. The employer had initially sent in a lawyer to represent him. Lawyer came back and said, Your Honor, I wish to withdraw myself from this case. So lawyer no longer appeared in court. Employer never came to appear in court to defend himself. And the judge is saying, however, I have dismissed this because you have not proven any valid contract, that you had any valid contract with the employer. For that reason, I cannot really make any ruling on this dispute because I'm not really sure whether you are really employed by this person. And especially this person has not even appeared in this court. So as far as I'm concerned, it has been stated time and time again by this court that where the respondent does not participate in the hearing and has not admitted the employment relationship, the claimant must prove the same as a preliminary point, as without proof, the whole claim is anchored on quicksand. She did not have any written contract. It was a verbal contract.
Oh no. Well,
That
yes,
was it.
They're gonna follow to the letter. And,
that's-
in this case, there was no
and
letter.
that's where
this
the-
is a lesson.
That's where the
Listen,
cookie crumbles.
get your stuff
This,
in order.
this is a lesson. You know, I'm going back to my favorite topic, banks.
Okay.
Whenever you have an issue with a bank, please document it. As in, write a letter, wait for a response. If there's none, write again, keep writing. Because this point that has been enlarged with this case will come to, at what point did we communicate on this one? And you will have no evidence. So whatever you talk, and as I said, they're just my favorite point of reference. But believe me, have you ever wondered how it is banks bother and go into details? They document things, my friend. They really document
Everything to the letter.
And then some, because they know it is a precautionary measure, so that when things go wrong, they just refer to what you signed. By the same token, it is important for people to get into the habit of documenting the things that matter to them. Because in the absence of that, you have no case. That's just the truth. None whatsoever.
Yep. You cannot prove that you are really employed by this person.
No, or even
have no
engaged.
contract.
And the
or
person
even a
has not
letter.
even come to this court to confirm or deny that you they even know you.
See, their coming there would have helped confirm that they knew you.
Yeah.
And that indeed they had a case to answer. They took the position, but I have no case to answer. Which means they're clever lawyers. who
I don't
understood.
even know.
Yes, I don't
Me,
even know.
I don't even know this person. And that was it. So, loser's case, and they claim that she was fired because she was emitting a foul smell. Also flies off the window. Coming up to the top of the hour, remember we'll be joining KTN Home will be joining us, or we'll be welcomed into KTN Home shortly at 7 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Top of the hour, today's Proverb City.
Slander by the stream will be heard by the frogs.
Slander by the stream will be heard by the frogs.
Remember, frogs do live in streams, by the side of streams. Being amphibious, they live in the water and out of the water. So, whatever the stream whispers,
Frogs
will
here.
hear.
Okay. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Mombasa is building up this morning already. The fog is quite low on Mombasa Road, so everybody's moving a little bit slower than normal because the visibility is actually quite low. So you want to be careful as you approach the area. It's building up right around the turnoff to the JKIA, as well as then forward towards Cabanas and then out towards General Motors. So that's going to slow up quite some this morning, but it's normal for a Monday morning. Hope it doesn't last too long. All right, let's look at a bit further on Thika Road. In and outbound, there seems to be some traffic. It's building up as well. So it'll take you a slower minute to get into the CBD. We'll take a look outside of Nairobi into Mombasa. We'll take a look at Kisumu as well, but for now it doesn't look too crazy on a Monday morning. Remember, you can let us know what you see. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's keep it moving this Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging,
a very
deep,
good morning to you.
controversial.
This is also Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi,
researcher,
94.4, in
academic,
Mombasa,
seasoned
87.9,
political observer,
102.5 in
a
Kisumu,
fountain of
Nakuru,
wisdom in these
96.0,
politically uncertain
96.7
times.
Eldoret, Nyeri, 90.9, Malindi, 97.7, and live streaming the show on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're also on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We live stream this show everywhere. And now, from this hour for the next 2 hours, we are also on KTN Home. Good morning, KTN Home. We are glad to be welcomed home by you, KTN. Siti Muga and Nduoko in the house. We'll be having an interesting discussion in this hour. We'll be joined shortly by Murango Senator Murango Kanata. He's also the Majority Chief Whip. He'll be telling us why the senators are meeting this morning to build consensus on some very contentious proposal by the the Commission on Revenue Allocation on the sharing of revenue in the counties. As we wait for him, let's also look at what else is happening around the country and around the world, CT. So there's a dispute here about Kenya and USA and entering into some free trade deal.
Well, this matter has actually gone to court. There's something interesting about agreements revolving around trade or free trade areas. They're actually complex matters that need to perhaps be expounded on by experts in this field. And we do have these experts. But from a layman's perspective, what the whole idea behind free trade is simply, as the name suggests, that those involved in that arrangement are able to move their goods and services across each other's borders in a manner that is economically beneficial to both parties. But where the issue, if you ask me, is likely to even arise is not so much what is happening between Kenya and America. No, but it is what else is happening between Kenya, the other countries in Africa, Kenya and its East African partners. Because Kenya already has agreements with, say, the East African countries, and we've moved some in the understanding of what we need to do. But also there's the Africa Free Trade Area, which as of June the 5th, if I'm to look at the statistics given to us by the nation, by the Standard rather, is that they've moved some. Let me explain what I mean by they've moved some, all right? Their goal was to have a single continental market, which means they don't have it. They were supposed to be a removal of tariffs. That hasn't happened. And they were supposed to have a customs union. Now, these are progresses, if I may use the term, that the East African community has managed. They have those things. There's been free movement. For instance, if you look at Kenya, our biggest trading partner in the region is actually Uganda. Uganda moves most of the goods that leave our port and get to, or that we process through our port, actually go to Uganda. Now, the question that is being asked is, when you sign this free trade agreement with America, how exactly will it affect the other free trade areas? Africa are trying to get themselves, all 55 countries, into a block, so that when you trade with one country, it's not very dissimilar from trading with any other. Because it's not as though the tariffs will be 50 on one side and 20 on the other. They'll more or less be the same. As I said, to gain from the benefit of collective bargaining as opposed to one country arguing. This case will take some time.
So which lawyers? The lawyers are filing a suit at the EAC court to block the Kenya-US trade deal.
It's under discussion. It's not as though we've arrived at signing anything.
Yeah. In fact, the conversation has now started now in earnest, properly, in terms of what Kenya would like. Kenya has presented what it would like, and America had already presented what they'd like. Entering into one deal doesn't bar you from entering into any other deal. Unless,
no, it shouldn't.
Unless there's any clause in any of those other contracts that says you shall not engage with anyone at all.
No.
I think the clause that I saw at some point was that you need to alert the other partners that you are also signing up a contract. And as far as Kenya is concerned, Kenya has already alerted members of the EAC.
These two lawyers take issue with the fact, or with the belief that then there will be a flooding in the market of goods specifically coming from the United States, and that's the issue that they have, and that you wouldn't see the reverse. You wouldn't see goods then coming from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania towards the United States in the manner in which you would see the reverse happening, and that's the primary issue that that's the primary factor that they're taking issue with here. And
is
so
the issue
block
that
the entire
is the issue that
deal
goods
because
coming
of this issue?
into Kenya will then find their way into the other EAC markets?
Yes, by virtue of the fact that CT said what he said. Uganda, for example, being the largest trading partner in the region that Kenya has.
Yeah.
It's like, because you have what they call now second seller agreements, because now goods coming in from the United States then find their way to Uganda as
and when
well.
we spoke to the US ambassador, he actually talked about how they can mitigate those kind of things, right? In terms of when you enter into this particular deal, you have to ensure that the trading is happening between Kenya and the USA. And it's not going to be used unscrupulously by a trader in TZ, for example, such that goods will come through Kenya to go into TZ.
There's, remember...
Or vice versa even.
The one trade agreement that America, a similar agreement that America has had with the continent was AGOA. Okay?
Yep.
And it involved, I think, fewer countries, around 38, I think.
Yep.
And this one seems to be dovetailing because AGOA comes to an end in 2025.
Yeah.
So there's need to either renew what existed or to ensure that you have something better. But this is a subject for further discussion.
It's a lot to be discussed. Let's see what happens. And actually, it's a conversation that is a bit complex, but you need to break it down.
It needs to be broken down into morsels
down
for us to understand exactly what's going on.
Two renowned individuals, Kenyans who understand this, someone by the name of Erastus Mwencha and Mohisa Kitui, wrote extensively on this subject. Now, these are people whose understanding of these matters far outstrip mine. So maybe at some point we'll engage them to explain to us why it is they held the views that they hold on such matters.
Yeah,
yes,
indeed. So for the next hour, let's talk about devolution and what's happening to devolution in the country. We are joined by Murang'a Senator Murango Kanata. He is also the majority whip in the Senate. Good morning, Senator.
Thank you, brother. I'm okay.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
You have your work cut out today, as we understand it, in terms of what is expected to be discussed in the Senate this morning. So a bit of a background. So there's a new formula for sharing of revenue among the counties. And this formula has brought in some hue and cry from some counties that feel that they are going to lose what they've been getting previously. And some other counties that have been complaining over the last couple of years saying, look, we have a huge population in this particular county. Just because we have a small geographical area doesn't mean that this formula that we've been having is working to our disadvantage. And now sort of tables have been reversed or tables have been turned.
Let me say that if you are going to pass the proposal by the committee, there'll be no single county that is going to lose money. I think that's a misconception that has been pendled around, but it's not true. Let me give you the background. What happened is that in 2010, we passed a new constitution. Article 217 of the constitution gives the Senate the power every a certain period of time to pass a new formula, and it sets out certain criteria. And then, so we had the first generation formula, it lapsed. We had the second generation formula, it's now lapsing this financial year. Now, the Commission for Revenue Allocation came up with a formula. It was taken before the Finance Committee of the Senate. There was a procrastination on the part of that committee. And then a new committee came into power, and it has now come up with this proposal. When you look at the parameters that were underpinning the previous formula, it is true they differ with the new formula parameters. It will be upon the senators to see which one makes sense. But I want to again reiterate, if the committee proposal passes, no single county is going to lose money. Reason being, it is true. If you could have passed the original version of the committee proposal, some counties would have lost money instantaneously. However, we amended that proposal. We say no, the formula may pass, but the effective date will be 2021-2022 financial year.
Okay, so the only thing that the committee is proposing that's different is the start date for implementation of this formula. But it will still happen.
Yeah, of course, we are thinking once the BBI proposals are effective, once we devolve more funds, we will ensure no county will lose any money. When this exercise commenced, the original idea was that some counties will be cushioned once we increase the shareable revenue that goes to the county. Currently, we send about 316 billion. So the idea was that you increase the money, and therefore no one loses. By sheer bad luck, that didn't happen this year because of the problem of the budget constraints, maybe because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And therefore the idea was, okay, pass the formula because the parameters, to some people, they think they make more sense. And then thereafter, you commence effecting the whole thing next financial year.
Kicking the can down the road.
In your opinion, what is currently being discussed as the formula to implement, will it actually work as it has been suggested?
In terms of?
Well, its applicability. You say that it's a formula that ensures that no one loses. What I'm actually asking is, what constitutes loss and what constitutes gain?
Well, assuming, for instance, you were to subject that formula on 316 billion, definitely there are some counties who will lose. If you don't provide some form of cushion. Cushion means either you get a fund, any county that is losing is mitigated, or you push effective date to next year, and then you hope by that time you have gotten more money. So from where I see it, if, for instance, you were to apply that formula against the current, it goes without saying. Everyone has tried to come up with an mutation versions where you don't have any county losing as against 316 billion. No one has been able to achieve that. And for obvious reason, because look here, take for instance the parameter of population. The current formula that we are using the 2009 population data. So if you were to again use the 2019 data without even doing any other thing, definitely
things change.
Things change.
Is that the only problem?
Yeah.
Is that the only problem with the way things are currently being done? And I'm asking that because I'm saying, why change? What brought about the change? Why did it need to change?
3 reasons. First, it is a constitutional imperative for Senate to come up with a new formula. Of course, you are right. Maybe you could have adopted the previous the previous formula. As we say, the second generation formula is now the third generation formula. That is possible.
You can
Just
still
a
roll
change
it
in
over.
date.
Yeah, it is possible. But now there's a problem. Number one, do you need to update data? Of course. Otherwise, you are saying the 2019 census did not
Is
make
irrelevant.
sense. Yeah, irrelevant. We use billions to conduct that census, and the reason why we usually conduct a census is to know how the country is, and then you apply that data for economic planning, isn't it?
Yes.
So, meaning, for instance, even if you are not looking on any other parameter, you had to look at the population parameter. Once you now update your data on population, things change.
Sure.
Some counties which are now more populous, definitely they become more entitled to more money, as opposed to those whose population has declined. And by the way, you'll be surprised. Some of the places where population seems to be declining, incidentally, those are the central Kenya counties. Like Murango has been on the borderline in the entire debate, because when you compare its population currently and the one that was there in 2009, you see some slight decline. So you'll be surprised when you try to update that data. Take, for instance, another parameter of poverty rate.
Yes.
Of course, some counties have become more prosperous. Others have become a little bit more poorer. So again, once you update that data, you find there is some change. Let's say we have another parameter of fiscal prudence. How do you measure fiscal prudence? You look at the Auditor General's reports. You find some counties have what we call qualified audit report. Others have a clean report. So meaning, once again, you update that data, you find there will be some counties that will gain, others will lose.
But if I'm to go by the logic that you have put across, of necessity, even with the new constitution, there always will be some counties which appear to lose and some which appear to gain. Because if you look at the parameters by which we judge what it is that counties should perform and what aspects of their performance is pegged to the money they get, there always will be differences.
Yes, you are right. And that's the reason why, so that you don't do what we call disruption in service delivery, you need to come up with either a special fund to mitigate those counties that are so-called losing, or you push the effective date to another year, hoping between now and that date, you'll have gotten some more money.
So you postpone it.
Yeah.
It's kicking the can down the road, which basically just points the spotlight squarely on the Senate and how the Senate has been operating. Senator, you've told us that this matter was brought before the Senate, before the previous committee. The previous committee pussyfooted on the issue. It was supposed to have done its job. It didn't do its work. And now that's why we are finding ourselves in a situation where we are in, because you haven't been able to resolve this particular issue. You're now kicking the can down the road and hoping that the BBI and other external processes will resolve this issue.
In fact, you're getting the impression that the Senate has become a faith-based organization.
Yes.
No, you see, now, as I had said, when the Commission for Revenue Allocation came up with this formula, there was the understanding, yes, it is true there will be some losses in some counties, but to ensure you have smooth delivery of services, come up with some fund to cushion the losses. Now, because of the problem, the fiscal constraints we are currently undergoing, that money was not there. So the only best way option is, okay, retain the status quo for at least 1 year. And then we hope next year things will be okay. And I can tell you from a political point of view, no government would dare reduce any county money or superintend a county losing any money when you are heading to an election. Yeah, I can tell you.
So this is what the Senate is basically hoping, that 2021, there's absolutely no way that that proposal as it stands could even go through even in 2021.
No.
Something else has to happen politically for money to be found so that you can cushion.
No, I think something should happen economically, I think. No, not so much politically. Politically is already happening. It's been kicked down the road. But economically, you need to have a sound financial footing.
Because a decision that could not be taken in 2020, Senator, 2021, and you, like you've said, just going into an election, 2021, now it's hot potato.
No, just take into account, the decision will be made today. You must also understand, meaning the formula will be embedded, God willing, in Senate or in a resolution, and it will become law technically. So therefore, we need to clarify that point. What you'll be doing is just like the way we do our legislative processes. You can pass law today; it is signed into law, but often you say the effective date is next year.
Yep.
Yeah, it happens. So, God willing, we shall pass that formula today.
And that's
now,
what I'm saying.
Another point just to clarify.
The reasons why this could not happen this year will definitely have to be dealt with next year.
Yeah, we hope so. Of course, we are looking at the expansion of the economy next year. We hope so.
With COVID.
We hope so. Or, there are many ways of recalibrating our budget. And we hope there'll be some remedial measures within a year. And also just to bring to your attention that the committee proposal is not the only proposal that senators will be discussing today. We have given the liberty senators to come up with as many options as possible. In fact, from where I see people are asking me, hey, Kanata, what is the official government position on this matter? The government position is come up with the best idea today and we shall buy it. It is not necessarily the committee proposal will be the one that will carry the day. We are looking for the best idea. Why? Because this stalemate has constitutional dimensions. You see, for counties to get money, several processes have to happen. Process number one, you have to pass something called Division of Revenue Bill. That was passed, I think, about April, May.
Yep.
It is the one that says national government will get this money, counties will get this money. That is step number one. Step number two, you now go to something we call formula. You are first to say, okay, counties are going to get 316 billion, but you are going to share that money under what formula? So you pass the formula today in Senate, it goes to the National Assembly for concurrence, and then now you start preparing something we call CARA. That CARA is an act of parliament that says, okay, county Y gets this money, county X gets this kind of money. After you pass now CARA, counties now have the legal basis for them to effect something we call their own budgets. So therefore, basically, currently, no county legally can pass its own budget. And therefore, you are disrupting service delivery at that level. There'll be a lot of problems. And therefore, from where I see it, we need to unlock this stalemate today legally to enable counties to operate.
So what happens today? I mean, you've said God willing a number of times. So what happens at the end of today when these decisions are made? How does that change in counties now with processes? God willing that all of this will be sorted out today. How does that change? Even if it doesn't come into practice for another year or so, what then in now the reintroduction of services in counties? How does that change?
Nothing will change. If things go as per the committee proposal for this year, the status could be maintained for 1 year. The money that they got last year, they'll get it this year, and therefore there'll be no disruption of services.
Okay. You talked also about, assuring, county bosses or whomever operates within the county that everybody will be, there's no money that will be removed from them, essentially, giving them that assurance. Is that something that is a sure thing?
Yeah, it is. Hoping the committee proposals passes. You can come up, maybe let's say another senator come up with a better idea. You never know, it may torpedo committee's proposal.
Right.
So you must also take that into account, that in fact we're encouraging senators. If you have better formula that let's say for instance can come up with some computations that ensures no county loses. Okay. If you can change or tweak it in a manner that everyone feels, now this is the best way, this is the magic bullet we have been waiting. Okay.
I'm still wondering, Senator, how we got here, where we got to a point where the Senate has to meet in the morning to build consensus and then maybe vote in the afternoon, and it's still not clear what direction will be taken. How did we get here? From the point the CRA gave its proposed formula to now, what is it? Who dropped the ball and where?
I think the problem commenced when people started getting the impression some of their counties are going to lose money. No single senator would want to be going home and people saying, okay, you superintended loss of money here. Most senators, quite a number of them, have frost their relationships with their governors. So it's very easy for a governor to go and tell people in the village, Senator Y, he's the one who is making you go.
He's the reason you're not getting any service.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get employed. He took away money from you. Yeah, so senators got, okay, we don't want to be.
So senators basically, instead of confronting the issue, they decided to be hands off.
No, it's not hands off.
There's a hot potato on the table. And instead of
leave it
dealing
there
with
to
that,
cool down.
But you know why we say hands off? Huh? If what we read is actually accurate, this matter should have been concluded by June the 30th.
Yeah, you are right.
Yes, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And yet, the relevant committee that was supposed to be handling it were in place.
You are very
Senator,
right, by the way.
let's
On
take a
that
quick
score,
break.
you are right.
Let's take a break, Senator, and then we come back and continue this conversation. We are speaking with Senator Murango Kanata. He's the Senator of Murango County and the Majority Whip in the Senate. We are discussing the division of revenue and the formula that has been proposed by the Commission on Revenue Allocation that is yet to be approved by the Senate or any decision made on the Senate, but that is expected to happen today. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's on Spice FM and KTN Home. A quick break at 26 minutes past 7, taking a look at the weather and traffic. Keep it right here.
All right, still mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 22 and showers for later on in the day. In Nyeri County, 19 degrees the high with showers later on. And in Nakuru, 21 degrees the high with showers expected later as well. All right, we'll take a look into Eldoret, where it's partly cloudy at 12 degrees. Thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 18 and lows of 12. Kisumu looks like rain in the afternoon, highs of 25 and lows of 17. Kakamega as well, 23 the high and lows of 15 with a wet afternoon in the forecast. Malindi at 25 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Taking a look then into Mombasa, it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Kampala, thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon, 25 the high and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam, 22 degrees and sunny conditions all through, highs of 31 and lows of 21. It's a really chilly morning in Joburg at 2 degrees. It's sunny though. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of 1. And for now, in Lagos, partly cloudy conditions at 24. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 23. All right, bad roads is what is causing a lot of traffic in Eastleigh this morning. Trying to get into the CBD will not be a very fun affair, unfortunately. Traffic is already building up in that area. Juja Road also getting to and from the CBD is quite the chock-a-blocked situation. All right, let's look at Ngong Road this morning. It's all clear all the way into town following the city mortuary roundabout. We won't have any problems there today. The traffic jam on Thika Road today is crazy. From about 7 o'clock, that means that people who've been there for about an hour or so, it's building up all the way from the Safari Park Hotel, trying to get your way to the underpass that leads you into the CBD. It's going to take a while, guys, so it's going to be peppered with some patience today. It's going to be absolutely necessary to do that. Looking at Mombasa Road, from Cabanas all the way to the General Motors area is bumper to bumper. It's likely to remain that way for some time. So let us know what it is that you see. The eastern and southern bypasses for now are looking good. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke as well as Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. And today until Wednesday, we're also on KTN Home. In the studio this morning on the hot seat is Senator Murango Kanata, Muranga Senator and Majority Chief Whip in the Senate. In the room as well is CT Muga, Nduoko and I'm Eric Latif. We are discussing the Senate work before the Senate this morning. There is a proposal by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. This is a constitutional requirement that periodically they have got to review the formula which is used to distribute money to the counties. It's the third basis of this formula, and this new one is looking at different parameters. And because of these parameters, there was fear and is widespread fear that some counties that were receiving some certain amounts of money are going to lose to a tune of at least 1 billion shillings for some counties, or even 1.8 billion shillings. I've seen some counties saying that they're likely to lose even up to 1.8 billion shillings in a financial year, just because of the parameters. The parameters include the population demographics, poverty rate, fiscal prudence, and others. So the Senate will be meeting today, first of all, to build consensus. Is that so, Senator?
Yes, of course, there will be a form of a kamukunji, although it's not titled a kamukunji as such. It is a meeting by the Committee of Finance to explain to the senators the rationale behind their proposal. But basically, one can argue it's a form of a kamukunji in the sense that it is informal in a way. It's not within the formal processes of the Senate. Yeah.
And then in the afternoon?
Then we shall go in the afternoon. The Speaker will come in. There will be a paper laid by the committee. And then the Speaker will adjourn for some few minutes to allow senators to bring their amendments. Then we shall vote.
Are the fears or the murmurings by certain counties that certain amounts of money may be removed from what they would spend, are these fears justified?
No, they are not. As I have explained, that if the committee proposal passes as it is, without any amendment, it is proposing that you put the effective date to next year. That way, this year, no county loses. Then, by next year, we'll have looked for money to ensure no county loses any money.
I'm going to ask you what processes you want to follow to ensure you find this money that you'll be looking for.
And what is that money going to be called?
One, there's a proposal in the BBI report to devolve more funds to the counties. Currently, the Constitution talks of a minimum of 15% of the national revenue that is generated. So if you are to push it to about, let's say, 40, then definitely it means you are devolving more funds. And therefore, no loss.
Herein lies a conundrum.
The problem.
Realistically speaking, do you see the national government devolving 40% of their funds to the counties?
Yeah, it's very possible. There are several functions in the Constitution which are still in the realm of the national government. If for any reason one of those functions is devolved, why not? Assume, for instance, I'm not saying that would be the proposal. I don't want to be quoted on this one. But just take maybe some aspects of security, some aspects of education. I'm just imagining. It's possible. Some other counties, let's say, some other countries.
It's okay to dream.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Some of these things may be in the realms of dreams, Senator, because you talk about things being possible. Very many things are possible in this country, but unfortunately have not been done. As we look at it now and we look at the sphere of it, many things are possible. A stellar education system is possible. Stellar healthcare is possible if, the right funds are applied to these things, but they're not done for one reason or another.
The Constitution as it stands states, and you've said so, that the devolved amounts that should get to the counties should be at a minimum 15%.
Yep.
How often does the national government actually devolve that 15%?
Oh, incidentally, it devolves more. I think twice of that. Yeah, in fact, it devolves twice of that. In fact, I do not know of any year the government went below 20%. So we have been devolving that. The issue is there are more functions which are still in the hands of the national government.
government.
So meaning for you to achieve a situation where more funds are being devolved, you may need to transfer some functions from the national government to the counties.
There's devolution, there's government committing. This 20% you speak of, does it actually ever get to the counties?
Yeah, it does. In fact, there is no single day where one can say that certain amounts of money do not reach their counties in a financial year. No single year. In fact, what has been there, which I would concede, is some delay. Let's say, for instance, that money was expected to be sent
So it's delayed.
in January. It is sent maybe in
On the
February.
15th of June.
No, in February. But I can tell you no single year any county can say, hey, we were expecting this money, we didn't get no single year.
You know, when counties are put on the spot over absorption of some of these monies, they say the money arrives so late that it's towards the end of the financial year.
And there's no time for us to do any kind of development work within the county because we received the funds when the year was coming to an end. So does it really work when the money comes when there's really no time for you to do anything with it?
No, it's not true. Again, that's not true. Factors that make counties not to get money promptly are usually many, and the reasons are usually diverse. One example, you can have what we call under-collection in a certain month. Remember, by the way, people must understand how a government budget works. Unlike our budgets at our family setting, often you usually keep some money aside, then you spend. Government doesn't operate that way. Government tax and spends immediately. You don't have a reserve fund to go and pick money to give somebody else. No, it is you tax in a month, then you spend it.
We don't have a sovereign fund, so to speak.
Yeah, we don't, by the way. And even if it was there, it doesn't. No country, to the best of my knowledge,
It's not the one that you budget for.
Yeah, it's not the one that you usually.
It's an emergency fund.
Yeah, so meaning generally governments usually depend on how fiscally a country is performing that month. So for any reason, let's say like now we are in the COVID lockdown. There are no people who are going to pay their taxes, to return their income tax. Companies are downsizing. Where will you get that money that month? Where you get that money from? So meaning, like those 2 months we had under collection, it means also the government receipts in terms of revenues, there will be under collection. So, but because there is a constitutional imperative that you must give counties X amounts of money, it means, in fact, by the that concept is provided for in the Constitution. If there is under collection, it is the national government that bears that burden. It is not the counties. The money by the counties is usually protected by law. So if there's under collection, it means fewer roads will be made by the national government. It will mean fewer police will be recruited in that year.
It can forego some of its projects, but it must send
money to
the counties.
How then, I find this puzzling really, how then is it that every so often we hear of pending bills not being paid, and the back and forth lands on the feet of the national government? They did not release enough funds. Not that they didn't release funds. We now have COVID, and counties are being required to ensure that they're able to cope with the disease should it surge in their counties. And reports that we hear, very few counties are actually ready. So, where is there this imbalance? Is it a figment of the imagination of the counties, or is there something that there's a difference between the amount that is proposed and it actually being delivered to the counties who need it?
As I said, that there are a myriad of reasons which makes counties not to receive money promptly. By the way, some of them is attributable to incompetence by various county officials. It is true.
There's part of that as well.
Yeah, of course. Let me give you a good example. You know, you're supposed to requisition the national government, and there is an entity we call control budget. So you must prepare your documents, take them to the control budgets for approval. Once that happens, those documents are then taken to the central bank. Then that money is wired to your account. So some counties don't prepare those requisite documents. They don't even have competence to prepare those documents. Some even are led by governors who don't even have that knowledge of those processes. Yeah, it is true. So you find either there is delay in making those documents, or they make documents which go to the control badges and they are rejected. You see, so all that process then disrupts service delivery.
Where does the Senate come in such cases? You're the protector of devolution, and also you are the ones who are set there to ensure that counties are doing what they're supposed to do to deliver services to the people.
Often that report would be made or brought to the attention of the Senate through what we call audit report. And you know, audit is usually a last stage process in the entire accounting cycle. So meaning there'll be those problem of under-absorption of funds. So then auditor will come to your county. He will then, ask you, can you give me your documents? He will realize, you didn't requisition 2 billion. Yeah. Yep. And then he raised that issue. You'll be given an opportunity to defend yourself. In fact, personally, I'm now a member of what we call CPAC, a committee, Public Accounts Committee of the Senate. So the auditor will come to your county. He will do what we call an entry meeting. Then once he looks at your books, he will then do what we call an exit meeting. After that, then he will give you what we call a management letter. Then he will give you a draft report. All those are opportunities for you to respond, to explain why didn't you requisition for
the
development,
2 billion,
for the 2 billion.
Yeah.
You will say, I don't know what, you will say, I don't know what. If you don't give a sufficient response, you'll be brought before the Senate.
Okay.
Again, the Senate will give you another opportunity to explain why didn't you requisition this money. If you don't give any reasonable cause, then Senate will do what we call recommendations, which may include you can be arrested, maybe that you have violated some law. We have governors currently facing charges, criminal charges. Example include the Busia governor, the Samburu governors. All those who are arrested based on the reports from the Committee of Public Accounts Committee of the Senate. Yeah, we can also recommend you can be surcharged in the event that you have stolen money. So there are several ways for.
And when you notice that the kinds of incompetence that you described, maybe lack of capacity by the county executive or even the governor, what recommendation would you come up with in such a case?
Yeah, we can recommend investigation by other investigative agencies. Particularly in instances of where it's an issue of stealing, incompetence, we can censure you. You see also, there are some forms of incompetence which are political also. Also you're also elected at the end of the day. Yeah. So ideally also, you should be punished by wananchi in a way also. Senator, so it depends.
Senator, I just want to, the incompetence also that I want to go to is you mentioned something like, inability to craft a budget, for example, or to fill out a budget line properly. It bothers me because, the custodian of a county should at the very least be able to do things like that. So what kind of interventions would be put in place, or would be recognized by Senate to have some of these things done? Because complaints would come in the future, and then if you do an investigation, you find out it's because of somebody's, inability to do something that you would see as extremely easy or as extremely simple.
There are many remedial measures. We have remedial measures at the Senate level. We also have remedial measures at the county assembly level. Remember, CCs can be recalled by the county assembly. CC is like a minister at the national government level. So meaning also we can nudge the assembly to take action and recall a person who is incompetent. And there are several instances. I have seen CECs being recalled. They can even go to the extreme cases of impeaching a governor. Remember, the governor for Kiambu was impeached, and you can see some of those allegations were based on the reports that were before the Senate. So meaning there are several remedial measures. Other remedial measures are also political. The people can kick you out during an election. Yeah.
But for that to happen, people need to be aware that this is what this is what the Senate found. This is what all the other agencies found. The Auditor General found this. The Senate Public Accounts Committee found this. This is a recommendation. This has been discussed extensively in the Senate so that people can see and understand that this is what's happening in their county.
Exactly. That's the reason why what we call Committee of Public Accounts, counties public accounts, is usually open to the members of the press. In fact, there have been instances where KTN has been beaming those proceedings live. I've seen even Citizen beaming those proceedings live. In fact, I would urge you to assign a person in the committee. In fact, this week and next week, in fact, for the next 2 months, we shall be grilling members of the county executive, various governors. You saw Ngilo was there the other day. Mutua was there the other day. Today we are having the governor from Kwale, Mr. Mvuria. So you come and beam it so that wananchi can understand. Of course, some instances have been told. The press officer of the Senate, he calls some media stations, tell you, hey, can you come and cover? They say, that governor doesn't have any name recognition. Yeah. You see, they're doing,
It's a waste of airtime.
Last week it happened.
You think that governor doesn't have voltage?
So you see, it's also unfair because now you are doing injustice to the
people of Kenya.
Yeah, it is true.
Back to the issue that you're kicking down the road, this one that you'll be discussing today on the third basis revenue allocation formula. You're saying that the proposal by the Finance Committee is that let's adopt the formula as it is, but let's move the effective date to next year. Then that's the 2021-22 financial year, right? Is there any other proposal that is joining this as a rider and saying, well, we also expect that by that time the Senate will have come up with this proposal, will have come up with these bills, that this kind of laws will also cushion the other counties?
Well, there are many proposals. I don't want to preempt the discussion that will be before the Senate. I know Senator for Narok has come up with another proposal. There are several permutations, and therefore maybe his will also be considered. There was also another proposal that was not crystallized so far into an amendment. I hope it will be crystallized. Some people say, we maintain status quo for the next 5 years. Again, that's another option. I'm also aware of an idea that was being floated by a senator from Nyamira. We postpone not with 1 year, with 2 years up to 2022. Again, that's also another proposal. So what I would urge fellow senators, please bring as many proposals as possible. Let us look at the best one.
What does postponing do? What does postponing mean to those that were bound to benefit from this new one?
Yeah,
I know there are very many counties that have been complaining. I think your county now, because of the 2019 census, things have changed a little bit. But a county like Kiambu, for instance, I hear that they've been complaining for a long time, even the members of parliament, that look, we have a population of over 1 million people in this county, and this is how much you receive. And they would have expected that now with this new third basis formula, at least they were going to get money commensurate with the kind of services that they expected to deliver to the people.
Yeah, you are right. That's a problem that will be raised by some, particularly those who are gaining. But in short, it's at times it's becoming like a zero-sum game. Yeah, you touch this, the rest say, hey, no, don't dare. You do this. So for me, I think the best case scenario is a middle ground. And by the way, personally, I've gone out of my way to try to come up with a middle ground, which is acceptable to everyone. Initially...
Is that really ever possible?
Well, we shall know today, but I can tell you, originally, the proposal was more harsher. Take, for instance, the original proposal by the Commission for Revenue Allocation. 27 counties were gaining. They were gaining. and about 20 counties were losing. So, secondly, this new proposal was brought in. Then we had 29 counties gaining, and now 18 counties losing. So meaning it appears more counties at least were now on the positive trajectory. But then again, we thought, okay, fine, 29 counties will gain, 18 will lose. What do we do? Surely, is that fair? And they are going to lose this year. Some will be losing about 2 billion. Others will be losing 1 billion. So another proposal was made. Okay, why can't we have counties assisting each other? If you are gaining, let's say, amounts of money, we reduce your gain by 50%, then we give it to the losing county. So the gains are 50% of the originally intended amounts, and the losses are 50% of the originally intended amounts. So there was such kind of a proposal. By the way, it was even, that idea was even affirmed by the executive. In fact, the executive said, okay, I think this is a better proposal. But when we took it and we started to triangulate it amongst senators, we realized so long as a person is losing, including $1 million, he's not happy.
Of course not.
Yeah. So meaning, so we thought, okay, to move this debate forward, let us maybe come up with an idea. Okay, we postpone any loss with at least 1 year, hoping the other year.
That is called shirking responsibility,
Wow.
Senator. This
We'll see
is
what we
basically
can do.
saying that, you know what, this thing is too hot for us. Let's move it. Let's kick it down the road. In fact, those who are proposing 5 years, they're thinking 5 years' time, I'll have gone, I'll have campaigned, I'll want to be governor, and then lobby in this house. I'll not be the one dealing with this. This is senators avoiding their responsibility. It is a tough time. It's a tough decision that you must make, but you must make it.
Yeah, what you are saying is okay, but you see that's a form of
Only okay, it isn't true.
No, of course it is problematic. You see, you are talking of making decision just for the sake of making a decision, not taking into account here you are dealing with the real problems, real people's problems. Yeah, imagine you are a county of Wajir or Mandera or let's say Turkana, and then all of a sudden you are told this year you're not getting 2 billion shillings. Surely, 2 billion. It means maybe you'll be forced to downsize. You'll be forced to close down some of your services. 2 billion is a huge loss for a county within a year.
What happens next year, Senator, when now the favorable conditions which you hope will have been reached are not reached?
No, have worsened.
Or even gotten worse. What happens? Because if you say now, we're not going to make this decision now because so many things are going on. There's COVID, the country was already suffering economically, etc., right?
Those are not the reasons. The reasons are I do not want to be the one who
they
passed
need
this bill.
No, but yeah, they
and
need
go back
we
to my
shall
people.
still be in
No.
office.
You said very clearly now, Senator, there's some extra money that you would need, right? Hopefully that we'll find this money from somewhere. But because we can't do that now, we'll give it a year. So what happens in a year when the very high possibility of not finding that extra money or conditions don't change or conditions worsen? Is it going to be another year then? What would happen?
4 things can happen to get that money. Number one, national government can stop some of its projects. That's a possibility. It can, let's say, we are headed to a year where we must devolve more funds to the counties. So we downscale some of our projects. That's one possibility. 2,
Dependent on the goodwill of the national government.
Exactly, and we know how it is possible. Number 2, national government can also borrow money to give counties.
From where? The Senator? Okay.
Borrowing.
Yeah,
Go to borrowing again.
Borrowing.
Yeah, it can borrow.
All right.
Why
So,
not?
Okay.
Why not?
increase our debt.
Remember, by the way,
Increase
the
debt.
constitution.
Okay.
That's option 2.
The constitution doesn't give counties powers to borrow
True.
unless superintended by the national
By the national government.
So meaning, is also an option on the part of the national government.
National government is in a very tight pickle already when it comes to borrowing.
Well, it can borrow money. It can borrow money and give counties.
Meaning the situation we're in, we can get deeper into it.
Into that.
Which means
That's,
we'll
so
be-
those are
number three.
those are two options
Number
dependent on the
three.
national government. Uh-huh.
But of course, everything is dependent on the national government.
Number three.
Number three, you can then, for instance, have the national income increase. It can increase. Yeah?
Within a year.
Yeah, it is possible.
We can collect more than 1.6 trillion shillings.
It is possible.
From?
It is possible. It happens.
I love this optimistic outlook.
It happens.
Senator has.
Actually,
All right.
It happens.
This is-
See,
this is
let me
optimism.
give you.
So that is
no,
number
I can
three.
give you the macroeconomic indicators.
Okay.
So far. We have seen exports have been increasing. People thought they would decline. Yeah, you know horticulture. It has, you have seen. There were several.
it has resurrected.
It is possible. It's a possibility. Let me give you a story to give this in perspective. Many years ago, kings used to be judges, isn't it?
Yes, they were the be all and end all.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Every power was reposing in a. So one day, 3 guys were told by the king, "You are going to die." Isn't it? They had committed a capital offense, so they were judged by the king. They are going to die. So one of the guys said, "Hey, don't kill me, brother." He was told, "Why? Please give me 4 days. I'm going to make you a horse to start flying. You're always fighting with our enemies. I'm going to do some magic, and your horse would be flying." So the guy said, "Okay, I give you 4 days." So the other guys who went now to die there and then asked the other guy, "Hey, why did you cheat the king?" He told them, 3 reasons. Number 1, this king can die before the 4th day. And it is the king who has the sole prerogative to sign death warrant. So if he dies before that day, I'll be free. You guys, you are going to die now.
So it's basically dying time.
Number 2, I can die of natural causes. And therefore, I won't feel the pain you're about to feel. Finally, you never know. I can do something and
The horse flies.
it flies.
The man had really opened his options.
That's completely just hoping on a miracle.
Let me tell you, in life.
Hoping on a miracle.
In life.
Keep your options open.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything can
Senator,
happen.
thank you very much. Let's take a quick break. We want to talk about Kenya Ports Authority. They have a new portal, an information portal called Captain Cargo. And Captain Cargo is on kpa.co.ke /Captain Cargo. And what kind of information do they have?
All right, so port tariffs, I think it's very important. Also, services rendered to vessels, services rendered to cargo. There's marine services from the little boats to the big vessels, the ships, etc., etc. Important to note that it's not the same services that are rendered across board. And so the portal gives information of just that. There's something they call stevedoring, discharging and loading cargo from and to vessels or the next mode of transport. So whereas previously, you would not be sure what service was rendered to what particular kind of vessel, whether you were importing or exporting. And so all of this information now very clear, put out on the portal so that you're never really lost. Even if you don't have hands-on interaction with your cargo, with your vessel, at least you're aware of what's happening. And that information is very clearly on Captain Cargo.
As we conclude our conversation with Senator Murango Kanata, the Murang'a senator, who's also the majority chief whip, basically what you're telling us is never give up hope. Always live on that chance that anything could happen.
Yeah, of course.
So don't make your decision today.
No,
Hope
you have
that
to
something
be
could change
strategic
tomorrow.
when you are superintending government business. You must also look at several factors and do good projections going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator, for joining us today. We'd like to give you a moment to give you a final and closing remark. Speak to the people of Kenya.
Thank you. We hope today Senate will meet and we shall make a firm decision that will be positive to every citizen of this country, including various counties. For me, from where I sit, I do not want any disruption in service delivery in every county. His Excellency, the President of this Republic, has given us instructions that we assist counties not to get disrupted. No wonder we came up with that proposal to cushion counties, at least for 1 year. We hope there'll be consensus. We also open to new ideas from senators. Yeah, we are not closed. We don't have a closed mind.
Right.
It's not a zero-sum game. It is not.
Thank you very much, Murango Kanata, Senator from Murang'a County. We wish you all the best in those deliberations. Our advice to you is make a decision.
Thank you.
Make a decision. It's a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Good morning. It's now coming up to 8 o'clock. In the next hour, we have a new guest, and the guest will be the Nyeri Deputy Governor. This is Dr. Caroline Karugo. She'll be here. She's also the chairperson of the County Deputy Governors Forum. So she'll be here to tell us what the Deputy Governors usually do. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Okay, all right. Taking a look at what's happening on Mombasa Road right now. It's chock-a-block inbound, unfortunately. Plan your movement wisely is what we're asking everybody to do today. Right around the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, yes, it is actually quite full there. So we're looking at traffic all the way from the SGR till the roundabout at Nyayo Stadium. We're looking at the Juja stage as well. It's taking in and outbound traffic today, bumper to bumper. On Thika Road as well, getting into the CBD using the Pangani underpass. That's going to take you a while because the traffic has built up. We're right in the middle of traffic hour. It's a Monday morning and things are looking a little bit crazy wherever it is that you look at it. Help us out here, guys. Spice FM KE on Twitter. In case you see somewhere that you might be stuck or potentially for somebody else to find an easy way out, do share.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place
it's
for
also
hard
Kenya's
truths,
biggest conversation. We
debates,
broadcast
and
in Nairobi
elevated
94.4. We are in Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9 and 97.7 in Malindi, and www.spicefm.co.ke worldwide. We're also live streaming this show on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can join this conversation as well on Instagram, Spice FM KE. We are also live on KTN Home for wherever you are around the country. Welcome. In this hour, we speak deputy governors, and we're joined now on the hot seat by the Nyeri Deputy Governor, who's also the chairperson of the Deputy Governors Forum, Dr. Caroline Karugo. Welcome. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here again.
It's good. You know, now in COVID times, when you see somebody, you just know that they're keeping safe. You're happy.
Especially those of you from Nairobi. I see you're driving in bus loads to
Nairobi.
the village, to the village since last weekend. But it's lovely to be here nonetheless. It's been a while since we were last here. Yeah. And I brought you, as is my custom, I brought you some lovely Nyeri coffee, like I usually do. The Dedan Kimathi.
You were brought up well.
I am brought up well.
Yes,
I
thank
keep
you
telling
very
you I'm a
much.
villager.
Some
You
people,
were not
some
raised
people
by
just
wolves.
grow up.
If I can pass it around,
Yes.
it's Dedan Kimathi
Yes.
premium coffee.
Give me Eric's.
Grown,
You don't mind?
grown. It's beautiful. AAA Arabica, medium roast. Lovely coffee, the best coffee.
Lovely.
ever
I'm
gonna taste.
telling
The
you.
best kept secret. I have an extra packet. For
So this is a Dedan Kimathi University premium coffee.
Yes.
100% Arabica coffee. Done by the university.
the university itself. Yes, so they grow it, and they harvest, mill and roast and mill, and it's lovely coffee. I'm
And
sure
package.
you tasted it the last time
It's delightful coffee.
It's lovely.
Did you taste it actually?
Yes, no,
It
not
is
once.
Not once?
Not twice.
You know, you never
not
called
thrice.
me for an. I peddle coffee. I peddle Nyeri coffee.
You take it
Never-
everywhere you go.
I have it in my trunk everywhere I go. Good, lovely to be here.
Dr. Karogo, thank you very
for
much
the
for
good
coming.
reason
Thank
for
you.
calling. I will call you this time.
Oh, brilliant.
Now
Now
you
you
have
have a
an
reason.
excuse. Now you have an excuse.
You're more than welcome.
Dr. Ari, Deputy Governors.
Yes.
Now you're the chair of the Deputy Governors Forum.
Yes.
What's this forum about? Is it just a club of DGs?
Well, the Deputy Governors Forum is a forum that puts together, deputy governors from across the country. And ideally, what we endeavor to do is create a platform for knowledge and information exchange and sort of inter-county relations within the country. It's a forum that's been there as old as the Council of Governors has been there. And we also look at seeing how we can support our governors to to achieve their goals and their visions for our counties. But I happen to be chair of deputy governors at a time that I consider very exciting, especially because of the looming constitutional reforms and the fact that we have realized that there is a huge sort of, loophole on the functions and the roles of deputy governors straight from the Constitution to the County Governments Act. And that is what my agenda is as chair. And I hope that I'll be able to, lobby enough support to get actual functions and actual roles given to deputy governors countrywide.
That would be an interesting conversation because you see the
Yeah.
perception among the public. And in fact, even when we started talking about that you will be joining us,
Yes.
it was like, let's ask ourselves, do deputies have a role at any level? If it's deputy headmaster, deputy principal, deputy president, deputy anything,
Deputy CEO.
deputy CEO, do they have any role? Or is their role just to wait for the moment that the head is not there so that you can get into the office and
Places
function?
where they're not needed, you don't have them. You don't have a deputy husband.
Really?
You go. I know, right?
surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Ndu says, you'll be surprised. So, the role of deputy governors is integral in devolution. And I mean deputy president, deputy governors. It's very integral in devolution in itself, and it cannot be underestimated. Just the amount of the amount of potential that, for instance, the deputies have, the amount of experience that they bring on board in terms of driving a county's agenda. So I think it's very important to have the deputies there. However, we need to then ask ourselves, so now that we have deputy governors there, what are they doing 8 to 5? And can we ensure that the Mwananchi knows what deputy governors are doing, 8 to 5? We're tired of being told that we are the people waiting for governors to die. We are the people hoping that
They don't die- they-
engineering
Who are sponsoring
impeachments.
impeachments.
They don't
You
really
know-
die often enough, do they?
Muga, can you be nice? Now,
So
so
what do you do 8 to 5?
deputy governors, countrywide are utilized in different ways by their bosses. And in some cases, maybe, there is no work for deputy governors. In some cases, some deputy governors, for instance, Meru, actually do have a job. They are CEC finance, so they actually have an 8 to 5 job. But I can tell you, for the majority of deputy governors in this country,
They have no portfolio.
because
It's the governor who decides your
It's the
portfolio.
governor that decides your portfolio, and
Do you-
it depends on how the governor wants to utilize you.
It's I'm going to put it a little more bluntly. It depends on how powerful the governor wants to remain, or how much they want to concentrate power around themselves.
Relevance.
Yes, because for some people to devolve it even in the slightest means you have devolved power from yourself. But the
You're
question I
right.
want to ask was this, Excellency.
Yes.
Do you
Just
think...
call me Carol. It's easier.
You know it's not going to happen.
We've been on this 1 year.
Yeah, we can keep dancing around it.
Your Excellency, Carol.
Yes. Excellency.
Yes.
Do you think the drafters of this constitution deliberately diluted the position of governors?
Not at all.
Of deputy.
No, not at all.
Deputy, yes. sorry.
Of deputy governors.
Yes.
Not at all.
Why?
I think just like many other things in the constitution that we are now trying to amend, I think it was an issue of really not putting too much thought into it and perhaps assuming that it's a plug and play, that relationships are going to work. Of course, not paying into attention that the fact that you can't legislate relationships,
You actually want to
especially
factor
political relationships.
You want to factor wishful thinking into something as serious as a constitution.
I think so. Just like many other issues in the constitution that we're trying to now solve, because if you look at the constitution, Article 179, Article 5, that is the only place that attempts to say what a deputy governor would do, and it's clear that a deputy governor will act in the absence.
Will deputize.
You know,
And act in the absence.
So you sit and for 5 years hoping that your boss is absent for you to act. I mean, and you know, it's also a huge. If you look at it, it's unfortunate because there's a lot of money being lost. The counties are struggling with huge wage bills,
And yet,
and
yes.
you have a deputy governor getting paid and with no defined role, even to Mwananchi. So one of the proposals, I think you alluded to that, Eric, earlier, that we are making through the Haji team is to see if these deputy governors can actually be given a portfolio. And it's going to add into the debate of cutting the wage bill, into this whole Punguza Mzigo debate to Mwananchi. So that you don't have a deputy governor, but you have a deputy governor and
To
plus
become one of the 10 CECs.
Yes. CEC. So you actually have something that you are delivering to Mwananchi, and at the same, you're able to, cut back on the wage bill. And of course, the ripple effect of this, hopefully, is that this money can go into development projects and into our counties.
Are you seeking a proper definition of what portfolio to be given?
No. I think we steered clear.
So the
If you
governor
read
can
my
decide to just basically assign the deputy some weak position in CEC, create a portfolio and call it.
It's still better than having no portfolio. Even if I don't know what a weak portfolio to you means, but whatever portfolio you want to call weak, it's still better than actually having no JD. Eric.
You know, at independence and subsequently with the subsequent presidents after the founding, the father of the nation, so to speak, there was always a specific role for the vice president.
Yes.
And the minister for home affairs.
Yes.
There was always and.
Yes.
Now, why I say this was deliberate was because, sincerely, there was nothing stopping the drafters of the Constitution from saying, not being specific to anything, but saying the deputy governor must also be, or must also have the portfolio of a CEC. Nothing beyond that, meaning you can then decide where they're going to fit in, but then they become an active member. There was nothing stopping them.
The politics of it, I think. You see, when you have something like that, you're creating two centers of power. If you have a strong, and how is it that people choose their deputy governor candidates? They're looking at, what am I going to get from this person? This person is going to bring votes because they come from that other region where I don't have strong support, so it's balancing it out.
What mileage could they push?
And for that mileage.
Yeah.
So you have this person who's coming and they also have a position that is clearly anchored in law. Then you're basically saying that you are likely to have increased conflict between the governor and the deputy.
Eric, conflict.
Already, the deputy governor's position is secured in that the governor cannot fire this person.
Eric, there are two things here. One, there is the governor specifically asking for someone who has the role that you've mentioned very clearly, but also someone who they probably think can't possibly threaten their position.
Yep.
That's one. Two, there is also the small issue of when you consider having a deputy and you are a governor, or if you're a crafter of the Constitution, this, believe me, is thinking that tends towards being negative, as Her Excellency had mentioned. But I get the impression that some of the drafters who are now politicians and some of whom are governors had themselves envisioned their being in those positions and wondering what it is that they would like.
Well, Muga, I guess if we sit here and really think about the past, it's good. It's a very depressing story. And that's why I want us to look at the looming constitutional reforms. Granted, the County Government Act actually canvasses in Section 32, tends to give functions of a deputy governor, but still doesn't really detail the functions of a deputy. Does this person have a portfolio? They only go, and like the Constitution, it goes deeper to say, that this person cannot hire fire in the absence of the governor, and this person will actually be principal assistant. But even that is by and large vague, and that is why my bid is take advantage of the BBI time to canvass some of these issues and bring them to fore. How then can we empower our deputy governors, ensure that they actually do have a portfolio? So it's been a journey from the Constitution to the County Governments Act, and you saw the more common bill, just passed last week. So I think we're making steady steps.
What was the more common bill?
Well, I think mostly it was about replacements, nomination of a deputy governor in case what happens, for instance, in Nairobi happens to any other county, and the governor refuses to nominate a deputy governor. So now at least we have, a guideline to that, so that the next conversation is that when these people are in office, what are they actually doing? Now, the thing is, what you all don't know is that I think deputy governors is the biggest pool of most experienced experts in this country. I mean, I have professors of physics, I have professors of math, we have doctors of finance, doctors of agriculture, we have engineers, teachers. It's a fine mix of wonderful expertise that is just sitting there.
She ignored that.
That is just sitting there and, sort of being underutilized by default or design, being underutilized. And I would want to ensure that a lot of these people actually have a reason for being, because they are eager to work.
Is there consensus for this eagerness that you speak of across the board?
100%. That's why we put together a memorandum, and we actually did present it to the Haji team. We put together a memorandum and said, listen, we want to be a little bit more busy than we are right now. We don't want to just sit and be sent to funerals with 10,000 shillings. We actually do want to work. We actually do want a certain portfolio that our performance can be measured.
What would that look like, Carol? Yeah. What would it look like? Because here we say, all right, we see the effects of a DG when the governor is not there. Yeah. All right. Yeah. What would it look like? A DG was actually working. What would it be? What portfolio in county would it be that the shoes would be filled?
There are so many portfolios. So this is what it would look like. So you will be deputy governor, yes, and you will be governor in the absence of your boss. But in his absence, for instance, you have a portfolio, say what? Infrastructure.
Or finance. Give us the example of the Meru one.
Yes, or finance. He has an 8 to 5 job. He's got to report to the county assembly on the various things that, on budgets and the process and the various other things that are happening within his department. So by and large, this person is not idle, but in the absence of the governor, then they step up and they can say, now that governor is away, I will be CC so-and-so will help me in my finance portfolio so that then I can act as governor. So then we make maximum use of these individuals. Yeah.
Okay, so that's example of what's happening in Meru.
Yes.
Give us the example of what's happening in Nyeri, for instance. Does the DG of Nyeri have any functions, or any times do you sit in the CECs, in the county executive committee meetings, in the cabinet?
In fact, when I was coming in, I had said, I since I am chair of deputy governors countrywide, I really do not want to go into various counties, because I think then I'll lose the bigger agenda.
You're giving us the example so that we can internalize this story.
For like DG Nyeri doesn't have a portfolio. So, it then leaves you to your boss, to what your boss wants you to do. But what we have also done as deputy governors is that we have taken up initiatives that touch the lives of people. For instance, for me, I've taken up the issue of cancer. Cancer, Nyeri ranks highest in non-communicable diseases. I think we had that discussion the last time I was here in studio. And one of the things that I have been doing is reaching out to foundations and a lot of people, persons of goodwill, to join me and get onto sensitization campaigns. And we've seen a whole lot of people, about almost 40,000 people, being screened from such efforts. So deputy governors, I know that Rakanithi has taken up environment, and he's putting together youth, and what they're doing is coming up with nurseries and giving seedlings. So we have actually also learned how to survive within the environment, that if you're not given a job, then you find, for instance, a charitable cause to keep you going.
Champion.
Yes, to champion. Yeah.
Sounds like a first lady's office.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what my male colleagues would say about that, but
It's still a first.
yes,
Still-
you know, you
still a
could
first
argue.
ladies.
Yeah.
You presented the proposals to the BBI team.
Yes.
And the proposal here is that you'd like DGs to also have a portfolio,
Right.
specifically in law.
Yes.
So you come in knowing that your governor is going also to appoint you into a certain portfolio.
Yes.
But this is also highly dependent on what the governor wants to.
Precisely, because also deputy governors come in different fashions and different professions. So you cannot then cage and say that
Within
we have
finance,
one,
and yet he's a doctor.
Precisely.
Do we have any case where a deputy governor has proved to be so competent that their boss, the governor, has actually bequeathed on them a portfolio, as you so very aptly put it? Do we have any example?
The Meru one.
The Meru one, you could say.
No,
you could,
that one tells me that they have a progressive governor.
And also, it tells you about the relationship between the two persons. Because this is the thing. When all these professionals that you're saying are serving as deputy governors across the country, serious professionals, Professor in Mombasa, you've got Dr. Karogo in Nyeri, you've got, now we have the DG who took over Bomet, who was also very experienced people. When they're accepting to run with this person, to seek the ticket, what do they think? What's running through their mind? I mean, you already know, you're, like you're saying, this is somebody who's really exposed, so they know,
Right.
I'm not going to have any job unless this person assigns me a job.
Right.
What's in their mind?
Beyond
You know,
political aspiration.
It's hard to talk about what's in people's mind, but what I can say
Informally, what do
is
they tell you?
Politics is politics. There is being a technocrat, and there is politics on the side. So you could come in and imagine that you have an MOU, and and I can see Muga laughing
With your political partner.
because we hear a lot of that we had an MOU during campaigns. We had said I'll bring 50% of the CECs will come from my region, and so there's all this happens pre-election. When the governor is then installed and politics comes to play, I mean, no one is in control of that process. So it doesn't matter what you thought. It doesn't matter what
Was promised or what you said. Window MOU out.
Precisely. Politics is going to throw a spanner in the works. And, and that is why it's important to actually anchor these things in the Constitution. So it's not about how you feel, how you wake up, how the governor feels today. No, it is about, this is a constitutional matter. And Mwananchi, the thing is, if you look at it from the Mwananchi side, and when we go around, Mwananchi doesn't know that the deputy governor does not have a portfolio, does not have a budget, that has no say. So we get a lot of backlash also from Wanjiku saying, you are second in command.
Yep.
We want roads, we want water, we want A, B, C,
Why
and
can't
D.
you do
Because
it?
you
So
came and campaigned and told
It would
us.
be easy if you said, I am also CEC, for instance, water or whatever. Let's speak water in this village, and people would know that you're actually in charge of water or whatever. So it is what it is. That's the situation we are in. And the good thing is that now we can talk about it and we can do something about it. And the times are right.
How do we cushion the governors? Because this fear by governors is real. We cannot really run away from the fact that there's something that is making the
Why
governors.
do you think we need to cushion governors?
Their fear is real. It's based on something. It's based on the fact that they do not want to be outshone by this person that they campaigned with. As you can hear from what Caroline is saying, there is what they were looking for. in this person when they approach the person. I am a politician, you are a technocrat. I come from this side, you come from the other side. So I can go to those people and tell them that, well, your person is my running mate. So we shall get the votes. But I do not want, when we get into office, I do not trust that we shall continue working in harmony. They don't want to be upstaged by their deputies. How do we address the fears of these governors? If you don't address them, the governor is going to assign you some very low-key portfolio. You'll have a portfolio, yes, but it's called, social services.
CUC social services.
Eric is arguing just like a technocrat.
Yes.
Isn't he?
Yeah, because I'm thinking, you cannot assuage any fear that somebody has, a politician who wants to control power fully. There's really nothing you can do, in all honesty.
But we must acknowledge that there's a fear.
If you have that particular provision in the Constitution, then he has no choice.
Okay, so
or they have no choice.
Based on that, then, Carol, do you see then any kind of any kind of sentiment against now what you're asking to be put in the Constitution?
Some pushback.
Do you expect pushback then, especially from the side of governors? Because if this is now in law, then there's a certain amount of power then, according to law, then that you must give to deputy governors. Do you foresee any kind of pushback from this?
A lot of these things that we do are not for us. And I want to perceive that governors will not look at it that this is about them, because it's just we are 1 year out now, and if we make a change now, it's really for posterity's sake. It's for those that come behind us. I want to make sure that 10 years, 20 years from now, deputy governors will actually feel utilized in their counties. So we don't want to look at it from is there going to be pushback? Is there not going to be pushback? And even if there is pushback, then we can lobby Parliament and see if we can amend the County Governments Act, Section 32, and see if we can bolster it, with this proposal. But we don't anticipate that governors will want to push back, because even they will not be governors forever.
They'll never be deputy.
Precisely. This is for posterity's sake. That's why it's a constitutional issue. Yeah.
We'll continue this conversation shortly, because I still feel that you guys are running away from a reality that is confronting you right there in your face. That there's something that is making the governors not give you more prominence in your counties. And unless we start addressing that, then saying that we're going to anchor it in law may not sort out the political issue. It's 26 minutes after 8. This is The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. We're taking a quick break. We want to take a look at the weather and then traffic, what's happening on the roads. We have in our studio with us Dr. Caroline Karugo. She is a Nyeri Deputy Governor, but also the chair of the Deputy Governors Forum. Good morning.
In Nairobi, it's at 13 degrees, looking like cloudy conditions throughout the day with highs of 24. In Nyeri, 19 degrees the high, and likelihood of rain in the afternoon with lows of 12. Nakuru at 13 degrees is partly cloudy this morning, highs of 21 with a wet afternoon in store. 13 will be the low. In Eldoret, thunderstorms expected for the afternoon, highs of 18 and lows of 12. It'll be a wet afternoon in Kisumu as well, highs of 25 and lows of 17. Rainy conditions are forecasted for Kakamega, highs of 23 and lows of 15. In Malindi, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 28. And in Mombasa, highs of 29 degrees with partly cloudy conditions. Kampala is going to be a thundery afternoon with highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam, 31 degrees, the high, lows of 21 with partly cloudy conditions. And in Joburg, clear skies at 2 degrees this morning, still rather chilly for the day, highs of 17 and lows of 1. And finally for now in Lagos, 24 degrees the high and lows of 23. All right, still looking at a situation on Mombasa Road, still bumper to bumper is what we expect now until about 8:30, 9 o'clock, which is where we are right now. It'll open up in a short while, that's for sure, as people get to where they're going this morning. Nothing major happening coming from Westlands then down into the city centre. off of Thika Road, getting to the Pangani underpass. Juja Road was a problem in and outbound today. Jogo Road has slowed down considerably. So we're seeing pockets of traffic around the city. Is expected from Monday morning. Is expected for this time as well. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. Spice of MKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
Traffic.
Conversation continues at 29 minutes after 8. It's the situation in Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM 90.9 in Nyeri, and your Deputy Governor is in the studio. She's also the chairperson of the National Deputy Governors Forum, and we are discussing the role and functions of deputy governors. We know that, this is not anything we can hide. We know for a fact that deputy governors are, for very many counties around the country, idle. I've tried to look for another word. I just didn't get any other.
I wouldn't say
That word is gonna get in trouble.
Because she used it at some point.
No, but Eric, I wouldn't say they're idle. I wouldn't say they're idle.
Mm-hmm. Are they gainfully employed?
I don't want to digress. This is what I wanted to say.
Right.
If a governor was previously a very active and committed politician, and even if he wasn't or she wasn't, what they do is they learn very quickly on the job. What position, not of equal but of similar importance, do you think they emulate? That of the presidency.
Yep.
And when the governors realize just how much power they actually genuinely have, unless you're a very unique person, that thing will shoot straight to your head. Straight. And power will revolve around you and the acolytes you have around you. Your deputy, not even by design, will just probably be put aside. But there'll be this group of people who knew you before God knows when and who have been with you, who will be running this county. The deputy will be referred to from time to time. Oh, there's a deputy. Okay. No.
Yep. Somewhere.
Do you think it is odd that you hardly know of any deputy governor? Hardly.
No.
It's not odd. Because that space has been hogged fully by the governors. They want that power to revolve around them. And the reason why is because the amount of money, among other reasons, that counties get, it's an enormous amount of money.
So does it change? Because look, Carol, by the time an individual comes to you and says, oh, Carol, fantastic, PhD in finance, this, that, the other, there's something that we want, to be put on board, to be able to govern the county of Nyeri, for example. Somebody comes to you and there was something at that point about you that was appealing in terms of how you're then going to be able to govern the county. So are we saying that along the line that this appeal was lost or is just not regarded?
Politics happened.
Right? Yeah. So then again, the county focus then is out.
Not county, the governor focus.
No.
At the
beginning, it was not about the county.
Hold on. The focus
was always about the governor.
About putting them in power.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
fine. So was that? So this is what I'm saying. If there was an understanding at the very beginning that it was about getting this governor in that seat, right? Yeah. Then what changes along the line now where there's this clamor to say we need to be recognized as an entity?
Well, like I said before, politics. I have no other explanation for, it's stranger than fiction. Some of the stories that I hear from my colleagues, especially those that went into an election together, is very strange. That, just the amount of sort of fallouts, that there can be. And the only thing that explains it is the political dynamics are constantly changing. And sometimes they don't change as quick as they do for your deputy as they do for the governor. And trying to carry the governor, the deputy along, your political trajectory sometimes is difficult, especially where, for instance, the deputy also has their own political trajectory.
Yeah.
And we see this especially in counties where both governor and deputies are politicians, so one of them, for instance, this time is in Tanga, the other one is in this other one. Yes. So we see a lot of that disparity. But it's really just politics. And my heart actually just leaps for the people that we serve, because the people that we serve really don't care. They really don't care about your political dynamics, about the fact that you don't like each other, the fact that those are non-issues, and really should not stop the service delivery for Wanjiku. So that is what we're beginning to see, and like I said, the only treatment.
So if the DG went in with a job description whereby, because we know that politics is going to be there, politics will be there.
Yes.
So DG went in with a job description knowing that, look, regardless of all these things that happen on the periphery,
Yes.
I have a job to do.
Yes.
It would be better?
It would be awesome. It would be better, because and not just that you go in with a job description, that you sat somewhere across the table, across a cup of coffee, and you decided you will do this for me. That will certainly change. It will be changed by politics, even if the governor is a very good-hearted person.
Yep.
The politics of the day will change that. It needs to be anchored in the constitution, that you will actually have a portfolio and you will actually have something that you're delivering to Wanjiku. So then that way, it doesn't matter what side of the bed any of you woke up, we have something to deliver to Wanjiku, and deputy governors feel utilized, in their
Excellency
communities.
is really polite. She's really, really polite. She kept referring to then politics happens. This thing called politics happening.
Usurping of power.
It's being played.
It's being played. There will be a group of whisperers who never stop whispering in the governor's ear.
There's a cronyism aspect that comes into play.
But it's not unique to Kenya.
It isn't.
It is a global thing.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
is there anything that you're modeling now your proposal with or to? Because I've just tried to think, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK? Do I know? I don't know.
The question that
Who
you should ask,
the
is it
Deputy
important for you to
Chancellor
know?
of, right?
And the answer is no.
No.
Yeah.
It is not important for you to know.
And do they have any portfolio? No. So why do we need to have a portfolio for deputy governors?
Actually, in the UK, it may be different in this sense. They may have a portfolio within the party.
It's within their party.
It's
Yes,
within,
yes,
yes.
In most countries, it's within, it's
Yes,
within
the
your political party.
And their political
Yes.
parties are powerful.
Yeah.
They're the ones who actually even determine who the prime minister is.
Precisely.
So if you're talking portfolio, they do have portfolio. This one,
In the party, not now coming into the executive.
brother, in many of those
Mike
countries,
Pence, the vice president of the USA, what does he do? What's his 8 to 5? Or Joe Biden when he was Obama's vice president, what was his 8 to 5?
Answer roll call.
There you go. Going to represent the president where the president felt, Joe, just go for this one.
You go to Africa.
I think they agree on what the person should do. And these fellows seem to try as much as possible to give the impression that
they're
they actually
working
abide by their constitution. So you will know what you're supposed to do. They'll tell you, no, this one is no. The deputy,
This is not your-
the vice president is the one who sort of handles this. They try to have that clarity.
So some culture that has developed over years,
Yes.
that these are some roles that are performed by the deputy
Yes.
president.
Right.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
within the same thing, that we are going into that culture where we'll know when it comes to, issues about supporting the vulnerable in the society and such and the other, those are the roles that the deputy governor will be doing.
But I hear you
know,
saying that it needs to go a step above that, and it actually
She
needs
wants
to
it
be
entrenched into law.
anchored in law.
And I
Precisely.
support you. I support her view fully.
We started this journey, about now 1.5 years ago, when we started actually looking at what is the role. So because if this is what our bid is, we're bidding to empower the offices of the deputy governors. What does the Constitution say about the office of the deputy president, which we're supposed to mirror, and or at least under Article 147, I think it should be Article 147, the deputy president's functions are sort of a little bit, more strengthened than those, for instance, at the county level, because at the county level, the Constitution just talks about absence of governor. You would be aware that the deputy president actually chairs IBEC. So, the Constitution was a little bit more detailed. So our first step was, can we then mirror, for instance, what's going on at the national government? But then we realized even that's not going to be sufficient, because still there is no portfolio. You don't have a portfolio. You actually don't have much that you're doing until your boss is absent. That's why we said, so how else can we plug in? And then we looked at the wage bills of these counties. I mean, if you look at the wage bills of these counties, it's really disheartening. You know, it really beats, you know, even the spirit of devolution. And we said, so we have then this one person who's here, paid 700,000 shillings, and, you know, and out of no fault of their own, is left to do nothing.
It's underutilized.
Yes, it's underutilized. So how then can we, you know, how can we buff up this person? How can we ensure that this person actually constitutionally can deliver?
And how do we make sure that the
Wanjiku?
county can also benefit from whatever expertise that this individual could have to offer?
Precisely.
Right?
Yes, precisely.
There
Yeah.
are 10 members of the county executive committee who are appointed by the governor, who bring in a lot of expertise in running various portfolios.
Who are supposed to
And
bring
this-
in a lot of expertise.
Yes, and these people are vetted by the county assembly, which county assembly is supposed to ensure that they've got the requisite expertise in managing the portfolios that they are given.
It doesn't mean that this individual who is also
This deputy
at
governor
the behest of the
position,
governor
this
cannot
deputy
add.
governor can propose, that's one way, is can propose that instead of earning something commensurate with the governor or a deputy, can be earning an allowance, just some simple allowance.
And keep doing nothing.
Yeah, like the governor of West Pokot. Go to America, work in America, live in America. But
And
you
your
know,
deputy,
the day you are required to come back
you will
home,
come
you'll
here.
come back home and you will serve as acting governor.
So then what are we saying about the wage bill?
We've just said you're taking an allowance.
you're
What
taking an
percentage
allowance.
of
So,
the
when you
county
come-
budget does the wage bill entail?
Different counties, different percentages, but the sorry way, or the sorry sort of general status of counties is we are spending anything from 70-80% in, you know, recurrent expenditure, and just the
So,
rest.
are all
the
the
rest in
people that the
development.
counties employ necessary? There's a reason why I'm asking this
Yes,
question.
I can tell you, it's a long
Not
journey.
the DG.
Yes,
The
but
DG,
the
in my
staff
opinion, is
themselves-
relevant, but
no,
are all
no,
the
no.
members of staff necessary?
I tell you what, if I'm going to answer that in two ways. One, politically, of course, they are necessary because you don't want to fire people. But one of the things that we have realized in a lot of these counties, and as we continue to understand them, is because of the long journeys the county governments have come from, the local authorities, to where we are today. There is a time we actually used to employ rat catchers, for instance. Yeah, mosquito catchers.
Yes.
Very important.
Mole
Right.
trappers.
And a lot of these people are still employed by county governments. So it's also an issue of meter readers, for instance. It's also an issue of understanding your staff, matching talent, to current times, and seeing how then you can edge out, those roles that are, for instance, not useful anymore. And a lot of county governments are doing this, and you're hearing governors talking about, we're going to be, sort of retrenching this batch of people, or redesignating them to a different portfolio.
Department of Environment. Which means they're the ones who clean.
Where they're still catching mosquitoes.
In most counties, they actually, we've had to fashion new JDs for them, because they were paid, and really there's no
So
more
basically
rats
nobody
to
wants
catch.
to take the political decision to say we want to let you go.
It's a bit of
difficult
a,
one.
it's a
difficult.
difficult one if you look at it politically,
It's
to
votes.
just tell people,
We fired you.
Thanks.
we have fired you, thanks, we no longer need you, because one of the roles of government is actually,
Employment creation.
employment creation. So, it's a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah.
It's also understanding who are these people? Are they trainable? Can we take them back to school, give them a new skill, and give them a new job, for instance? So yes, but we have, to answer you, Muga, we've had to deal with a whole lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same way you were heading to that question.
I will decided to divert.
The wage bill and the importance of that wage bill.
You see, the same politics that ensures that deputy governors are rendered close to useless it's the same politics that keeps people employed. Because you will find there's always a complaint within counties that most of the employees come from a certain region.
Yep.
They're aligned to a certain person. And where getting rid of people becomes a problem, it's not that they've been gotten rid of, but others are then employed in their place. And then they come again from a certain region or they're aligned to a certain politician.
Right.
That's where the problem comes in. So politics always takes center stage. Not this, what takes place is the talk of development for Wanjiko and her cousins. But the reality is politics takes center stage for the governor and the acolytes around him.
Having sat in that position, Carol, and talking about that, I mean, you talked about it yourself, that politics, plays here heavily.
Right.
Can we see a situation, just from your experience and even what you're suggesting now, moving forward, whereby it can be different? Can it be different, whereby politics will not overshadow the work that would essentially be done?
That's exactly what I've been trying to say the last couple of minutes. Yes, it can be different, because it can be different if it's anchored in law, in the Constitution. That's the only, and we have looked, by the way, we have researched. By the time we got to the point that, listen, our only one lifeline is let's anchor this in the Constitution.
Yeah.
It's because we know that politics will always come
Rule
into
the
play.
day. And
it
is
will
this-
come into play. And we're not in control of that. And even if, like I said, even if the governor is very, a very nice
Kind-hearted.
person, kind-hearted, when politics comes into play, it will come into play. And a lot of these things will fall through the cracks, and you will continue having, underutilized government officials who are highly paid.
Was the BBI and the changes then that would be brought about by this then the only through way?
It's the only chance that we have right now.
There was nothing else that presented
It's a
itself.
ready vehicle.
There was nothing else that presented itself before.
It's a ready vehicle, and like I told you, we had in section 32 of the County Governments Act. I mean, progressively, you can see the conversation. I mean, it's been beefed up with time. The role of the deputy governor, where he says that the governor may give you a portfolio. That's an insertion that's been made. They may give you a portfolio, but
Which opens the window for the governor to do that.
Which opens the window for the governor to do that. So, but we want to say it's not that the governor may, that the governor shall give a portfolio to the deputy governor. And we hope by doing this, we'll be able to, get this on track. And remember, we are still believers of devolution. Well, I think what Eric is trying to tell us is to lose hope on devolution.
No,
And
no,
say,
no, no.
okay,
Accept an allowance and
so
relax.
accept an allowance.
There's
leave
absolutely
office.
nothing.
No, that
I've
would be
said
killing the
implies that.
essence.
You see,
the essence
the
of
role of the
devolution.
deputy governor is an insurance premium. Basically, you're there as the insurance for the county.
But then
That there shall not be a
the
vacancy
premium then
unless
is very
your office
expensive.
Is
the
yes.
premium is very 700,000 shillings a
and,
month,
and that's why we need to
that's
look at it
some hell of
differently.
insurance.
So we don't have to give this premium at that high cost. We're basically saying that you're an insurance
No.
policy, you're there, and we know you can continue working wherever you want to work. You're a finance professional, Carol, you can be working in Nairobi, finance professional. The day that the deputy governor calls you and asks you, oh, Carol, can you, the governor, calls you and says, could you stand in here and that, and could you take up this role? Then that point, you sign up and you get an allowance for that. The rest of the time,
essentially,
you don't have
you're
to.
killing
Just
devolution.
like-
You're clawing back on
just
devolution.
like, if you let me finish, we have been pushing for this issue to have commissions that are not permanent commissions.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
No.
There is
No.
the same
They're
way
not
we
the same
say
thing, Eric.
it's an insurance policy. You will be there when called upon. We know you will be ready.
Commissions don't run counties.
The governor runs county. The deputy
Precisely.
governor is sitting behind, waiting for the opportunity to run a county.
No, Eric.
At
That's-
the moment,
no.
he or she is not running this county.
The deputy is a useful member of that particular government, useful in that they may actually have some qualifications that warrants them having a certain position within that county government so that their contribution can be real.
Yep.
Deputizing is vague.
Yes.
It's ambiguous.
Yes.
Okay? But in our case,
Deputizing is not vague and ambiguous.
Oh, no. In the case of the government, county government, you see them.
It is very clear.
It
What do
couldn't
they
get
do?
more ambiguous.
When the governor is not available, then the deputy steps
These guys
in.
never go on leave.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a governor going on leave?
And that's it.
Have
So
you ever heard
if
of a
they're
governor
not going on leave,
leave?
that's fine. The deputy is not required.
Eric, that logic is something you have to
you see
explain
that
to me, because
the point that we have here is
Yes.
the May point. The May part, that the governor may assign some duties or portfolio to the deputy.
that's even vaguer.
So
That's
if
even
the,
bigger, because it could be an issue of when they feel
What, when
like
they
it.
feel like it?
exactly.
Or they don't feel like
if
it.
the
Or
governor,
if the
if the
situation
governor
arises, they would
feels
force
that
them to.
yes, that you've talked about, or this person brings in something that we can use in the county executive committee, they assign that person that duty. In the meantime, you are an insurance. This is the same argument that MPs have been using to say, you know, our role is to bring development to the people because people expect development. So give us CDF. And we keep saying no. Your role is to go to Parliament and legislate.
Let me say this to you, Eric, so that, because I think we risk looking at this conversation from a very tactical point of view, from a very clock in, clock out point of view. What is the deputy governor doing when they clock in, clock out? To a more strategic conversation, these counties actually have CIDPs. They actually have a vision of where you want to go. One person is the leader of that vision. It's important to have a partner or a second person who also buys into this vision and is then able, even for continuity's sake, is then able to track the vision. This is where we are. This is what we have achieved for Mwananchi, and this is where we are going. So you cannot then say that you do not. I come and I do whatever I'm doing.
Whenever we're
I
having
consult,
a CEC,
or I
whenever the
have another
cabinet is
job,
meeting, you
and I
shall
take an
come,
allowance, for instance.
You shall receive reports. You shall do all those things.
It's
but
got
you do
to
not
be a
need
continuous thing. Your heart has to be there. You must buy into the vision of where strategically are we going with this county.
But Eric, did the Constitution envision a part-time deputy?
No, you can't give the rapporteur position whereby you come and take notes every time there's a conference that's called. I mean, for crying out loud, there's a reason why you pulled this
What do you
person
think
in.
the Constitution envisioned?
Yeah.
You see, as far as I can see, the drafters, and this was actually what I preambled my conversation on, seem to have deliberately diluted the position of the deputy governor. That was my position.
Yep.
You see, they seemed to have missed out a key component in having designated positions for such a person, in that you create an even bigger platform for checks and balances. See, people look at it as a threat. It's a check and balance. The moment you have a deputy who has a clear role in government, yes, there may be a threat to you in that they may outperform you, but it means then you have to up your game.
Pull up your socks also and make
Yes.
sure that you're always at the top
This
when it
one,
comes
the
to
governors,
performance.
why do you think we have such dismal performances from so many of our governors?
Nobody's
There's
keeping anybody
and
in
balance.
check.
You have some random deputy who nobody in the country knows about, even in your own county, probably they don't even know who that person is. When they appear, they say, oh, so this is the deputy. Now, that I don't think, the extent to which I'm explaining it is what the Constitution intended, but that's what they have created.
And the time is
The
right
check
to
and balance
then bring
is
these
from another
discussions to
institution.
fore.
Another institution called the County Assembly. It's very clear. That's the role of the County Assembly. Checks and balances to the executive as a whole.
Actually,
The governor and his 10 CECs or her 10
actually, the
CECs,
check and
including
balance-
the deputy governor.
Eric, the check and balance that the county has is specific, really, if you look at it. It's not in the day-to-day running of the county. It's in the laws. It's in the ensuring that the laws that pertain to the running of a county are adhered to. Think of any government.
It's more along the lines of
That's what
legislation.
Parliament does. That's what Senate does.
Yes.
But I'm talking about day-to-day function of the executive. Day-to-day. A deputy is a good check and balance, believe me. It may not sound like it. In democracies where these things work, man, the check and balance is all over the place. You'll have an attorney general who doesn't agree with you, and they'll tell you they don't agree with you, and they'll give you reasons why. So the option is either they resign, or but
Toe the
that's
line.
it. But you then know that you cannot just do what you like, because somebody's going to constantly remind you of what the constitutional requirements are. A deputy would do an excellent job.
You know, there's
Example
I-
of a jurisdiction where this has happened. And not a parliamentary system where you have a coalition formed by leaders of different parties, because there they're checking and balancing each other. But another one.
The example that comes to my mind is the American system.
yeah.
Look at the number of times people whom the president has appointed have disagreed with him. They've resigned.
Right.
Or they've been sacked. Or they've been threatened. But they're a check and balance. They've pointed out, clearly
Left, yeah,
that
they've-
this one isn't
It's not
working.
working.
And yet they've been appointed by the governor. by the president.
Yes.
All right?
But
Which
they
means that they have a
know
voice.
that their role
Which is
is
the
to
same-
serve Eric. They know their role is to serve the Mwananchi, as we call it. So they serve the Mwananchi.
The same thing. The person who went and canvassed for votes alongside the governor is the deputy governor.
Yes.
And they have a voice. Nothing muzzles their voice. Nothing muzzles a deputy governor from calling a press conference
Eric,
or even
it is
issuing a
true.
statement to say,
they can't even be
I
sacked as you
disagree.
put it. But you know what happens? You are simply ostracized. You are left in the cold completely.
Now, can you imagine if you had a portfolio, you'd still
cronyism
be
that you talked
ostracized.
about, the cronyism doesn't center around the DG, for example. Who are you going to call on what platform are you going to be speaking? Calling a press conference on what platform?
As a deputy
For
governor.
example, saying what?
You are the deputy governor. You're calling out what you feel is not going right with the government. You can quit. We saw a deputy governor of Nairobi do the same. They just basically came out and said, I do not think that this is the direction that we promised the people of Nairobi we're going to take.
The deputy governor of
He could
Nairobi,
have continued staying there in our office, Polycarp, and continue raising those issues from that point.
Precisely, but this guy was not a politician. A
Nothing
politician would never hang themselves with their own rope. Never.
And I think it was unfortunate that we lost Igave. I think, and he's my friend, and I keep telling him, you would have been just a little bit more patient
Yep.
and
Tough
try
it
Tough it out.
fight it. Yes, fight it from within. Because what do you mean? Well, I mean, what are you saying about evolution when you quit, for instance? And the chances, and I can tell you, the temptation to quit is there. But you cannot. So because if you do that, essentially, then what you're saying is that you're killing devolution. Then and that it doesn't work. What I wanted to say to Muga is,
As we conclude.
yes, as we conclude, he initially said that it was deliberate. But the other thing that we have also seen, if you read the Constitution, is that there's also no defined way of removal of office. Of the deputy governor, there's no defined process. There is a defined process
For
governor,
Yeah.
but there is none. And so what we're proposing in our memorandum to Haji is to have a section under Article 181, to have an A that then details this is how to remove, and these are the reasons why a deputy governor would be
And
put
for
out
that
of
to
office.
happen, they
Because
must
as
have a
as we sit-
portfolio.
Yes, precisely. And for that to happen, they must have a portfolio.
Maybe not. Thank you very much, Dr. Caroline Karugu, for
Thank
speaking to
you
us.
for having me.
Chair of the National Deputy Governors Forum. We wish you all the best as you push for this. It makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
But also, you have to look at it from all sides.
Absolutely.
Asante sana for joining us. Just before you go, listen to today's proverb from CT Muga.
Slander by the stream will be heard by the frogs.
Slander by the stream will be heard by the
By
frog.
the frogs.
Anyone who has listened to a stream or a river or a rivulet rushing, they make a sound. They all do, passing through rocks. And the constant inhabitor of this environment are frogs and toads. So, because of the proximity and because they live in that environment, I think whatever happens to that stream, whatever noise, whatever sound it makes, they will hear.
They will hear.
Yes.
Indeed.
See, we are the frogs here.
You're great.
Hearing all the sounds.
Whatever is happening in this stream. Thank you, Carol, and thank you very much for bringing
Please
to
enjoy
us
the Nyeri
this.
coffee. And
Thank you
just
very
know
much.
if you
Dead
need
and
an extra
Kimathi
packet,
University.
always happy to bring you a fresh one.
Fantastic.
Lovely.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Asante sana, and thank you very much for everybody tuning in on KTN Home. Thank you very much. We'll be joining you again tomorrow morning from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It's now coming up to 9. So asante sana, KTN Home. We take this quick break so we can continue with your programming. The conversation continues at 3 minutes to 9 o'clock. It's a situation in Kenya's biggest conversation. conversation. Now, remember, we keep telling you about the KPA portal. This is an information portal that is kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, KARGO. And Captain Cargo basically has a lot of information that, there are very many things that we don't know about the port and port operations, like where the port operates from, like how many ports KPA manages. Is it just port by the ocean or port by the sea as well? Or is it inland container depots? Which ones are they and where are they? But also there's plenty more information there.
Sure, services rendered to cargo. I mean, who would have thought, okay, right, there's services rendered to the vessel that carries the cargo, services rendered now to the actual cargo itself. There's so much that's going on here that before you didn't really have an idea about. I mean, and then even terms I didn't even know existed. Shore handling, transfer, removal of cargo. Remember that position paper that CT was given last week? And then how that cargo is removed. There's a process that must follow. Wharfage, use of quays, wharfs, terminals, other wharfage.
Spell
WHARFAGE.
Arf.
Wharfage.
Like Canary Wharf.
Yeah, bas.
So wharfage. What is wharfage?
Wharfage is the use of wharfs, terminals, and other port infrastructure for the passage of cargo. So how your cargo moves through the port.
And what is a wharf?
What is a wharf?
A wharf is I don't even know how to start to describe this.
Start
now.
from the beginning. It usually helps.
We've got an ocean here.
Mingi. We even have Nairobi Dam.
So you've got water.
You've got water.
And you've got dry land. And you've got a port.
And you've got that space where ships sort of like dock next to. Okay.
That's a berth.
Yes, exactly. So what is the wharf? It is closely related.
Mwalimu, this one you have to tell us.
Yeah, this is what I have to tell us.
I'm not telling you.
All I know is that there's a fisherman's wharf upon which now you can do so many things, right? So then I'll find out the definition of that later. Maybe Captain Cargo can actually help us. But moving on, storage, cargo remaining in the port area after expiry of the free period. So there's a free period that you're actually given where your cargo can be stored. Who knew that? And you can get us all this information right here on that portal, telling you about how your cargo then can be stored if you're not ready to move it just then. So this is a thing. So you know what services can be rendered to your cargo, what services can be rendered to the vessel that you actually use, and all this fantastic information is on the portal.
Great. It's 9 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, let's take a look at how it has changed this morning, and not so terrible in different parts of the city. It's great because no accidents recorded so far on a Monday morning. That's good progress, I'd say. Coming off of Mombasa Road and then getting into the CBD, you have a little bit of a hold up right around the Uhuru Highway, but that is expected as you stretch then into the CBD and then on further into Westlands. Coming off of Thika Road into the into the Globe Cinema roundabout, that should not be too terrible either. So it's looking really good around the city, or rather the metropolis as we see it. Coming off from Gong Road and Langata Road as well, getting into the CBD, not too terrible. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us. Let us know what you see. Eastern and southern bypasses are looking pretty good for a Monday morning.
Also on Twitter, Spice of MKE, YouTube, Spice of MKE, and where else? Facebook, Spice of MKE. You can join the conversation 0719 012 600. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, reflecting what is happening in Kenya, around East Africa, and around the world. So, City, let's talk about how our leaders live.
You know, there's a technical term for it, especially if that lifestyle is loud and it's there for everyone to see, and if it's lavish. It's called conspicuous consumption.
Right.
And it's marked by, not just the place you live in, but the vehicle you drive or the vehicles you drive. And oftentimes these are vehicles that are associated with great cost. And not just in the country, but elsewhere in the world. And this gets to a point where it's even competitive. So the conversation around cars are no longer something that moves you from point A to B, but the size of the engine, the name that is known. Like you hear V8 being thrown around. There are certain German make of vehicles that people keep talking about. There are certain British names of vehicles. There are certain American make of vehicles that you hear people talking about. But all this, in many cases, is so that beyond even just the title they already have, which in itself is an image booster, is to show that you are no ordinary person. If you're not talking about politicians, it would work tremendously and it would apply to someone trying to demonstrate to their peers that their life is better. But what has exacerbated this position in this country is something that we've referred to as tenderpreneuring, where people get into what we call deals, which in reality is actually a form of theft. And in so doing, the proceeds that they get from these activities are then poured into huge, expensive vehicles, large houses or apartments in parts of towns, not just a town or a city, but towns which are known to be high-end. And usually this, in this country, is at the cost of the taxpayer. Because this is money that was supposed to achieve certain ends, it doesn't. It was supposed to have helped improve the life of the citizenry, it doesn't. But it certainly appears to, in the short run, and I'm using the word short deliberately, improve the life of the consumer, this conspicuous consumer.
I think you seem to be implying here that that lifestyle is funded by theft.
I am not
Is it
implying,
not possible?
I am stating.
Is it not possible, City, that there are leaders who live their lives, but it's a life that they can afford? Without necessarily
There
stealing?
are such leaders, and usually they are people who, prior to going into politics, had been business people.
Yep.
And hopefully, there are remnants of their wealth that have survived their politicking. Because politics in this country tends to consume that
expensive
wealth
affair.
really, really rapidly. So if there's something remaining, yes, indeed. Often with many politicians, there'll be a diminished lifestyle in the way they live once they get into politics. Because the politics will consume a great portion of that wealth that they had. But these numbers statistically are so few so as to be rendered almost irrelevant in a conversation like this one. Yeah.
Let's talk about big cars, all right?
Yes.
So this person was driving a big car before they got into parliament, before
Yes.
they became an MCA,
Yes.
and they still continue driving their big car. In fact, now they've even brought in a newer car. Just because things are going well, business is doing well, business is booming, and now they have this position that's also according them and affording them this kind of lifestyle.
No, the position they have as politicians affords them influence.
That influence.
And that influence can be peddled into tenderpreneuring.
Or it could actually just be the amount of money that they're getting out of it.
It is very, very possible.
It can afford them this car.
It is very
because
possible.
they have come in and they're able to now import a vehicle duty free, and from their other means they'll be able to pay off this car. So they bring in the most expensive car because they know from
There
everything
are
else.
people who fall into that category, and they do. But they are not that many. The majority of people whom we often refer to in this context are people who are employed by the government. By the government, not private sector. Private sector nobody even worries about, because one understands the huge amounts that private sector are paid. They also understand that the arrangement that the private sector sometimes have, if it's a profitable one, ways in which such things can be acquired through just the normal processes of your working. So they're hardly a subject of much debate. But it's when someone has a position within government where the take-home salary is known, their position is known, and yet there doesn't seem to be a correlation between the way they live and what they supposedly earn. Therein lies the conundrum.
And I think applied to this, unfortunately, is really the optics of it, especially now when you put this against what may be happening in certain country at certain times. If you have it being said over and over again that the country continues to suffer because of hard economic times, the economy is already on its knees, and then you see said leader living a certain kind of lifestyle against the fact that a majority of its people are not. The optics lends to the fact that there's something wrong here. And you would want to ask yourself, and then historically you say, okay, it has been said in the past that individuals may have, put their hands in the cookie jar, and that then has contributed to whatever wealth they may have. Unfortunately, that is the perception that people would have, that, okay, this must be somebody who's using public funds to their benefit. Unfortunately, it may not necessarily be the truth, but like I said, the optics lend to that credence.
You see, let me give an example of perhaps what is often most conspicuous in this country. It used to be a thing that was conspicuous during campaign times. It's a vehicle called a helicopter.
Okay, yeah,
Okay? There was a time when people knew that a politician was eminent, prominent, and perhaps affluent when they could hire a helicopter to campaign with, because it enabled them to move around many places in the space of one day. Then came the ownership of helicopters. And there's a subtle suggestion that there seemed to have been a silent competition as to who owns how many helicopters, not who owns a helicopter. No. Who owns how many helicopters.
And what brand are they and how old are they?
Exactly, because you would find, for instance, certain funerals where you would think it's a parking lot for helicopters. There'd be very, very many, which means almost everybody
has one.
Yes, and yet the roads leading that particular place are actually very passable. There's nothing terrible.
I mean, everybody else got there, right?
Yes. The Kenya government recently imposed a 39% tax on the purchases of aircrafts. Okay? You do this when you notice that there are many people who seem to be spending money in that. So why, as a government, should you not benefit from it?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, why is this important? And you brought the point home well. In a country where certain social amenities can be taken for granted, certain basic livelihoods can be taken for granted, and where there's a system that guarantees that those who are infirm and those who are unable to look after themselves are looked after by the state, one doesn't even notice it probably that much.
About it. No.
But when you have poverty levels that go beyond any measurable levels, then you have to ask the question, but something is wrong here. How can there be such extremes? Because it's the extremity. And you ask, how is it that this person is able to afford this? A very simple question. Remember, our constitution allows for lifestyle audits. Okay? Why does it do that? It's because it is understood that there will be people who are living beyond the means that they can reasonably explain or put across and justify in a manner that will be acceptable and reasonable.
So what you're saying is when you get into public office, you should be aware of the optics. You should sort of hold back on your conspicuous expenditure.
If you are...
You should hold back on your lifestyle, because we're talking about people who... I'll give you examples of politicians that we have in this country, public figures, who are known to be people of wealth even before they got into politics.
Yes.
Let's talk about the governor of Mombasa, for example, Hassan Ali Joho, right? And he's the one man who goes onto social media and posts pictures of himself wearing clearly what looks like expensive wear, expensive clothes. Recently, we saw him and Junaid Mohammed took a private jet to go and see Baba in the Middle East.
It wasn't just a private jet, huh? It wasn't a Lear jet.
It wasn't just a leased jet.
No, it was these humongous planes that have actually been converted into... Yes, so I understand.
Into private jet. Yeah, and they got into this one, I know, and they posted photos and they said, we are going to meet with Baba. And even when they met with Baba, they posted photos showing that they've met with Baba. So is this the kind of stuff that you're saying that you have a problem with?
I have a very big
showing it off to the public.
Yeah, I would say so. Because if you want to
But you're not questioning the fact that it's possible that Joho could afford this. It's possible that he could afford to take a private jet and go at any point.
I'm not questioning that. Because you go into a whole other kettle of fish there in terms of you want to start asking questions about where he got his wealth, what he did. No. I'm not even going there. But I'm saying, look at the timing at which this was being done. You're basically putting it in the face of Kenyans who thousands, for example, today have lost their jobs, who thousands today don't know how they're going to, have not paid their rent for the last 3 months, don't know how they're going to pay their rent, forget about rent, don't know how they're going to eat tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm saying that at some point, responsibility is not just in the things that you do with your hands. It's also in the decisions that you make about what are you showing Kenyans at this point as a leader of, any kind of repute. It doesn't really matter. But what are you showing Kenyans at that point? That even in the midst of your suffering, there are individuals who can, get up, take a trip for 2-3 days, and it's clearly that lavishness that you're showing to people. And then the people who are suffering, in the
just two
same
leaders in that humongous
in the
plane.
same country, not Kenya and Madagascar, not Kenya and the UK, in the same country. It's possible that people can be dying, crying, begging, looking for what they will use to feed
Have
their
no clue
children,
what they're going to
have
eat
no
on a
clue what
daily
they're going to
basis.
eat that day. As they're looking at those pictures, they don't know what they're going to eat that day. But in the same country, you can have such a distinct difference between one individual and another. Because you can't even start to count on all your appendages and that of your family, how much it will take you before you can even get to the place where those individuals are. In the same boundary.
Remember, it's the same county of Mombasa where there's a woman boiling stones. Huh?
Yep. It's the same county government of Mombasa that has mobilized a lot of resources to help such people.
It is the
In the
county of
forefront,
Mombasa.
where they have raised, what budget did Joho tell us? He even came up with a budget, and they had raised over 200 million shillings to support the vulnerable.
And the complaints that people had was that all that raising of money took place during the month of Ramadan. And there was a hue and cry that this, whatever aid that was being spoken of, was specifically going to the people who are fasting. Yes, and it wasn't reaching the simple Bonaje. Remember that issue of stones came up at a time when this money was already said to have been available to the citizenry. The point I'm making is that disparity speaks volumes. But Eric, let me change the discussion and just ask, how much do you think it costs on average to campaign for, say, an MCA's post, an MP, a women's rep, a senator, an MP?
How much would you spend during the campaigning period?
Believe me.
It has risen over the last
Yes,
couple of years.
it goes to even up to 10 million shillings. MCA. If you're talking about MPs, it goes up to even 35 million and beyond, depending on where you're campaigning. Okay? And then if you're talking about women's rep, it's a little less, 25 million, just some 10 million shillings less than there. If you're talking about senator, maybe
Who
30
came up with these statistics? How would a woman rep position cost you less to campaign?
No.
You're covering a larger area than an MP.
What I'm trying to say is the women's rep position would cost less because it is women campaigning. Men don't have the same habits as women when they campaign. And usually the position of women's rep has competition, but not as much competition. Remember, what drives up the cost is the competition. There are many people vying for this thing, so you have to keep spending. What it often means is selling property you already had. You'll sell a house, you'll sell 2 houses. Now, by the time you sell a house, you sell 2 houses, the amount of money you're probably trying to raise maybe some 50 million shillings.
Yeah.
But even if we lowered it and said it is 15 million shillings, it means that you want to start saving 2 years prior to an election. You want to start saving something like 1 million shillings every month to be able to have that sort of money. Governor, it is estimated at say 150 million. President is estimated at 4 billion. Because the amount of money you need to spend to mobilize, to do what, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now you tell me, someone expends that money and gets a seat. You think they are not going to work at ensuring that they recoup this money?
Okay. So basically what you've just said is let's stop judging them.
Oh no, I am saying judge them.
Okay.
Very, very harshly.
16 minutes after 9. Let's take a quick break. Take a look at the weather. This conversation continues. At some point, we'd like you to join in this conversation on what City Muga is raising this morning about conspicuous expenditure by our elected leaders, our public officers, and what it means. How does it appear to you? How do you translate that when you see it? Good morning.
start with Nairobi this morning. Partly cloudy conditions at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 today with a chance of showers later on. In Nyeri at 15 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. 20 degrees the high with lows of 12 and a wet afternoon forecasted for today. In Nakuru, we'll see a high of 21 and lows of 13 with partly cloudy conditions through most parts of today and a chance of a sprinkling in the afternoon. In Kisumu, thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. 19 degrees the high and lows of 12 with mostly sunny conditions at the moment. All right, let's take a look at Eldoret. 16 degrees, mostly sunny, thunderstorms expected for later as well. In Kakamega, 23 degrees the high and lows of 16 with rain showers expected later, partly cloudy conditions at 19 at the moment. It's mostly sunny in Malindi at 27 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24. Mombasa at 26 degrees is partly cloudy. Sunny conditions to ensue later, highs of 29 and lows of 23. It's partly cloudy in Kampala at 21 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18 with wet conditions forecasted for the afternoon. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 21. And in Johannesburg, it's warming up ever so slightly, 4 degrees and mostly sunny conditions. Now highs of 17 and lows of 2. And finally, in Africa, 24 degrees in Lagos, partly cloudy conditions, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Take a look into Paris then, where at 17 degrees, it's clear skies all through. Highs of 27 and lows of 15. It's clear skies in London at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 13. And finally, for now, Monday, we'll see New York rainy at 24 degrees. We'll see a high of 32 and lows of 21.
Talking about public officers and how when they live lavish lifestyles for the public to see, what the public perceives of that. And Citi, before we went into this break, you were giving us the breakdown of what it costs to campaign for these positions.
These positions are really, really, really expensive. And what I was actually saying is that what perhaps propels and fuels this entrepreneuring that we keep seeing is precisely this. It's a really unfortunate vicious cycle where there's a public that believes the only way I'm ever going to benefit is if I get my money up front from this person here. And the politician feels, if I really hope, it doesn't matter what track record I think I have, but I have to spend money on these people so that they can see me as a serious contender, because that is what seems to be the norm in this game that I've decided to participate in. So it's a vicious cycle in that people will spend money or look for money to spend, and after spending it, it is not written anywhere. They then move into this mode of trying to ensure that you recoup it. Now, many people who actually go into politics are not business people. Many of them are bureaucrats. They're people who worked in government. They're people who work in the private sector. They are not out-and-out businessmen. And the sort of businesses that they can do and do have to be influenced. Meaning, somebody gives you an okay, somebody talks to so-and-so. Essentially, it's a deal. But if you're talking about adding value, where you know so-and-so does this, produces, and it's something that has been ongoing, not many of them are in that position. So, where this again becomes, and why it is an issue and why I'm raising it, if you look at where the genesis of some of these things came about, we've been socialized to look at opulence as being a sign of wealth and of esteem and of position. So people will pursue anything so long as they can arrive at that image. How they get there is actually of a secondary consequence or consideration, but how they get there. And one of the greatest influences has been Hollywood. Because people look at, and there are people who actually sit, and mostly people who are younger, you will want to lap in the lives of these so-called film stars and what have you and what have you. And their lives are opulent. There's nothing austere about it. There's nothing simple about it. And it's in your face, it's in the public domain on a daily basis.
And what do they get out of that? They get respect, they get following, they get some kind of
business
hero
for them.
worship, right?
Business.
So when a politician is doing this, it's for the same reason. Because people will ask, this one wants to buy akona nini.
You see, Eric,
Hata ana baiskeli ya kucampaign.
those people I've just mentioned actually work for that. They actually earn money from their so-called acting to enable them to do this.
And I've brought the conversation back into this country, into where you started by saying the voters' perception of a person that they are going to elect.
Yes.
A voter will, that's why the case of the gentleman from Meru stood out, because this is a gentleman who's just a university student who did not even have a vehicle, had a bicycle,
yes.
and mobilized fellow youth to campaign for him. It stood out because it was an oddity. Kenyan voters will look at you and start asking you, "Hey, but Ndu, surely you are coming here driving a Datsun and you want us to elect you as an MP."
It's interesting.
Doesn't pick up.
Yeah.
Let's look at that, and it's interesting because why is that the thing? Because it's not just in Kenya as is practiced. Because if you were to stand up today, regardless of where you were, they will ask you, okay, what is it that you own? Who is your father? How much is it that you have? And what is it that you're coming basically to offer to us? Where is that? And why did that become an issue? Because truth be told, and that's why the issue of the Meru gentleman stands out. You know, it really does stand out because he had nothing to his name, really. Look at other countries whereby the members of parliament or leaders ride the tube just like everybody else, ride a bicycle just like everybody else, join a carpool to pick up their children from school just like everybody else, because their job is for the country. Whereas on the other side of it, it's looked as though this person now, we are putting them in this position so we can do some hero worship even more.
Yep.
So that we can, respect them even more. They had money, they had fame. Now we've put them on this pedestal whereby we can now ascribe more unto them, whereby it should actually be the opposite. So what happened?
It's a difference in the two societies.
Are we saying that is the culture, and so we should accept this is the culture on this side of the pond, and we should accept it as that when people are in a position of leadership, it is to ascribe more wealth and position and power unto their name?
Service goes out of the window completely.
It goes out the window completely.
Accepting is
nobody
debatable,
even takes into consideration that this person is actually in a position of servitude. Nobody regards that anymore.
Yep.
And it is wrong. And if we don't, it is wrong. And we keep saying that this mindset has to change. Somebody comes in because they have a position or they have a title, very big title behind their name. People are lying down so that you can see who will walk on them first.
Actually, I disagree.
And it should be the opposite.
The mindset of servitude is still there, very much so.
In whose mind?
It's only that it's looked at differently.
In whose mind? In whose mind is this servitude?
That's the reason why you hear people talking about this MP. Since we elected them, we don't see them. We haven't seen their work. We haven't seen their influence. We haven't seen what they've brought to the ground.
They don't see you, period.
Because they expect that because they elected you, you are going to serve them by bringing them something.
Yes, no.
Now, the one thing that they expect also at the same time, and this is where now the sort of paradox comes in, is at the same time that you are their leader and you're going to lead them out of their current situation into a better situation. And that's why they do not choose somebody who's equal to them. They choose somebody who's slightly above them, somebody who's got means, and they'll use those means to bring influence and elevate them from the current position.
Eric, that was the thinking, that this individual who apparently seems to have material wealth will not need to acquire more. False thinking. Very false thinking. Because you spend a great deal of money vying for that position. No business person is going to, or somebody who understands, is going to sit back and sort of like let the status quo. No, they will want to recoup what they spent. Now, in the process of recouping, this very voter is going to get the short end of this particular stick. And they always do.
That's true. That's true.
You're supposed to disagree with me, man.
Not making this in sweet
That's
anymore.
true.
Exactly.
And it's not even unique to here. In terms of, even in other jurisdictions, you'll find, what that politicians will have, which is a young politician who grew through the party ranks and now has gotten to a point where they can become mayor of Chicago, for instance. But the business community is the one that's going to prop him. Who's going to finance your campaign? And what do they expect in return? The business community that's financing that campaign, of course they expect to
Pass some laws that will favor
will
them.
be in their favor and things like that.
Yep.
Of course, that is. But I still go back to that thing of, you know what? It seems that you're putting politicians or putting leaders into position so that you can ascribe to them some more hero worship. Unfortunately, the element of servitude, coming to work for the people, coming to work for the better of the country, of the people, out the window a long time ago. It does not exist except for a very few, and that's why the very few stand out. For a very few who say, actually, you know what, I want to use what it is that I have, and I want to make sure that I've left this place or left these people better off than I have seen. So now, again, you come back to this issue where you see people basically putting whatever it is that they have on public display, basically putting it in the very face of those individuals who, with their vote, which would be seen as alms, all that they have, they give you their vote, so that perhaps you can raise them from this point where they were to the next, whereby they didn't suffer as much. And that is what you put in their face? No.
You know, we start from this perspective. The vast majority of our people are poor.
Yeah.
The vast majority of our people are dirt poor. Okay? The gentleman we talk of, the Meru MP, this guy had nothing. Absolutely.
Bicycle.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But with that little, he did so much. The projection was, if this guy becomes MP, how much more?
How much more can he do?
And actually, his track record has been very good. The point I'm trying to make here is this. We cannot compare ourselves to nations where the basic necessities of the citizenry have actually been predominantly taken care of. And even those who can't get jobs, there's a way of looking after them. Those who can't feed themselves, there's a way, it's instituted that can. Ours, when you have a very large portion of the community who exists on a hand-to-mouth basis, that is not a position where this conspicuous consumption.
When the majority of the people that you lead are not able to feed themselves, I'm sorry, but you have no business flouting any kind of wealth or anything else that you have in their faces. No business.
Whereas we may all agree in this room, let's also look at the other side of the reality. What is it that makes these leaders flaunt their wealth? It's because that is what is going to maintain their position and their status. Just like I started by saying, it's the expectation of the voter that when you're coming to me, you've got to show me that you can afford. Why is it that these leaders take the helicopters to go for a Harambe on a Sunday?
Because they want to do more than one in a day.
And no,
to show they have means.
It's to show that they have means. And what happens when they leave? It's not that they say, oh, huyu mtu alikuja na helicopter, hired a helicopter for 250,000 shillings and only left 100,000 shillings. And no, people are like,
did you see that
did
helicopter?
You see? He came in a helicopter. The example that we've just given of the Thursday trip by the two leaders, the whip in the minority, the National Assembly, Junet Mohammed, and the governor of Mombasa, took a private jet, went to Dubai to see the Honorable Raila Odinga, who's hospitalized there. What reaction did they receive from the public? This that we are having here is a very elitist conversation. The majority, and I've just looked at the Facebook page, I'll tell you what they're saying on the Facebook page. The conversation on social media was about other things. Have you seen that plane? Or have you seen there's a brown handbag there? Whose handbag is that? That's a conversation. That flaunting of wealth and all, it didn't happen. Why was it not happening? And why did Junet feel that he ought to have take the pictures and even take pictures of everything surroundings of this jet?
They themselves were in awe of that jet.
Even they themselves were enjoying the situation where they were, because you don't know where you go see them again, so you might as well enjoy it for now.
Show everybody I have arrived. This is where I am. 9:30. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719-012-600. Please join this conversation as well. Do you agree with the public flaunting of wealth by politicians, especially at this time? What does it mean? What is the perception of the public, and what should the perception of the public be? Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
Ngara to the CBD, it's a total mess right now. I would have expected that it would have cleared up by now, but unfortunately not. Getting into the CBD from the Globe Cinema roundabout is going to be an exercise in patience this morning, guys. All the way from the underpass, actually, even beyond Ngara, is where we see that there is an issue there. All right, looking at other parts now, Bagathi Way, people are complaining about the zebra crossings, no guardrail, no rail guard, no traffic lights, no road demarcation, no speed bumps, no speed limits. Oh my goodness. Rubble road surface, unfortunately, so that's causing some traffic. And we've seen an accident earlier on today, unfortunately, and hopefully the shout out there will be that somebody can do something about that. Okay, getting out of traffic hour in a very short while. Mombasa Road not looking as bad as it was looking like before. So it's not looking so bad this Monday morning. Shout out in case it does look terrible in your neck of the woods. Spice FMKE on Twitter.
Turn to 7 minutes to 10 o'clock. It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. You can join the conversation 0719 012 600. Conspicuous consumption.
You see, what it displays more than anything else, the more you have it, is the levels of impunity that our leaders have actually reached. Because to display this wealth that you sometimes know is also questionable, and to keep displaying it and to feel that there can be no consequences, simple consequence like, say, asking, excuse me, how did you manage to acquire this? A simple question. And you would assume that if people are that conscious, they might, as I said, be a little more prudent. They're not. It's a complete opposite. The complete opposite. So it is a display not just of disregard for the citizens whom they supposedly represent, but it's a complete disregard for what we call the laws of this country.
There you go. That's it. Because the people that you represent, by virtue of the fact that you're in a position of leadership, you represent a certain demographic of people. And usually within that demographic, you have then different demographics. You're representing age. You're representing status quo. You're representing educated and uneducated. You're representing these people. And if that's what you're saying, essentially it would be that I've seen a comment here and somebody saying, well, you know, if I'm in my house and I live a certain life, why should my house help, for example, complain? Well, look, if you're taking care of that individual and they have all that they need to be able to survive, then by all means you're fine. But the person that is under your watch is suffering. The person who is under your watch is suffering, cannot afford meals a day. And that's basically what you're showing the rest of the world, that everything is fine and dandy. There's a problem there, man. There's a problem.
Let's go to the phone lines. Go all the way to Lokichogio, and Maxwell is there. Good morning, Maxwell.
Morning, how are you?
We're fine, thank you. How is Lokichogio?
So far, so good, although I moved to Nairobi, back to Nairobi.
Karibu.
Asante.
Kulifungulio.
Now, kulifungulio, yes. As always, you guys make my day.
Asante sana.
Yeah, with very relevant conversations. But today, if we were to flip what Joho and Jeanette did,
yep.
Because I'd only look at it that they did it politically, that at the time of crisis when Baba needed people to visit him, they were there. They might have made socially very negative
inappropriate
mileage. Yes, but as the political books read, mileage is mileage, whether positive or negative, mileage is mileage. So politically, they did it correctly because Baba needed somebody to see him, and they're the ones who visited him. That is politically.
Okay.
But on a social platform where people are in need, and that is when you're flouting, or rather splashing your cash with things that don't really make sense, then it's very negative. But Kenyans always forget.
Was it possible for them to mix the politics with the social?
They didn't even really need to post. Maybe what they would have just done is take a photo of them with Baba and say that we came to see Baba and he's well and we are back.
Yeah, how they got there is not the point.
It's not the point because once you take that photo, then that is a show off. And then on the other conversation that you are having about deputy governors and their roles,
yep.
I feel maybe it's about time we, as much as we know that in Kenya, even if you to put it in law, laws are there to be broken by government and by everybody else. I think maybe we should tie it to in future, maybe not now, but in the near future, where if the governor is male, then the deputy has to be a woman, so that then this particular woman also acts as a women rep for that particular county. And if it's male, I don't know whether you have to be.
So the deputy governor
female.
goes to parliament?
Yes.
So deputy governor serves as DG and woman rep in the National Assembly.
Women rep in the National Assembly. So by that, you've already cut the budget of having 47 women reps.
This is, of course, we're assuming that every DG is going to be a woman.
I am of the opinion that you do not have to be a woman for you to represent women.
To be a women's rep.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can provided whatever you have an idea of what you want to do.
That now may bring a conflict, Maxwell, with
huge conflict.
With what the 47 seats are actually meant to be doing.
Okay, then the flip side of it would then be that if it so happens that the woman rep, the deputy is male, then of course then the woman rep can still go to parliament, but then would have still achieved, because I think then we'll have, it's either 47 women as women reps or 47 men as governors. Okay. Yeah, so we would be cutting the nene twice.
Some point. Let's listen to Priscilla, who's in Nakuru. Good morning, Priscilla.
Good morning, Eric. How are you guys?
We are well, thank you.
I don't want to take a very, analytical route in this. Mine is just to say that, unfortunately, these guys are a result of, they're a product of how we view them. And for me, this has been one of my bone of contention, because I always feel that my vote will never count, because I will always be at the, how can I say it? I will always be held prisoner by the majority of people who, you look at the Facebook and look at the comments that are there. Nobody was calling them out for, what you were saying, flaunting this wealth when people are in desperate need of help.
Yeah.
And, I go back to when I voted the last time we had elections. I looked at my presidential candidate. I looked at what they had to offer. I looked at what their biography was, what they had done. And sadly, in Nakuru County, when the votes were counted, there were only 34 of us who had voted for this person.
Who thought the same as you.
Yeah. So first let me put a disclaimer. I've never gone hungry. I am comfortable. So maybe sometimes I wonder, is it because of that I can make these decisions? But I cannot shake off this resentment I have for a majority of the people who will put these guys back to the positions of leadership, and I'll forever remain a prisoner. I don't know how Meru guys pulled it off, But it kills me. It kills me every time we're told go and vote, and you're the ones who put these leaders. But I can't do it when majority
Priscilla,
are there
you may
saying,
be in the minority now, but you will not forever be in the minority.
Eric, really?
Yep.
Did you see the comments?
This is where it
that
starts, Priscilla.
raised my
I saw the
blood
comments.
pressure?
Actually, I'm going to be reading the comments shortly.
But this is where it begins.
Seriously.
I know, Priscilla. Let's hear from Solomon.
Weren't you pulling them? Anyway, thank you. I've said my bit.
Thank you,
Thank
Priscilla.
you.
Solomon, good morning.
Good morning, Hamjamboni.
Hatujambo, Solomon. How is Mombasa?
Mombasa is hot, as always, but a little shower during the night.
Okay. Do you have any beef with your governor taking a private jet to Dubai?
It depends. If it's on a personal issue, you see, you have to look on someone on a political side, and it's personal matters. He's not the first one to go to Dubai on a private jet.
Okay.
I know a person who, during around April, booked a jet alone, went to Dubai for a whole week and came back. That's an individual. We don't know him. He's just a business person.
Okay.
So you have to differentiate social issues and political issues and governance issues. Because we all know, for example, before Joe became a governor or he was an MP through his brother, they are wealthy enough. He can afford to do that. So we have to differentiate all these things.
So you've differentiated and you're fine. From where
Yeah,
you sit?
from
But
where
you do remember, Solomon, that the governor is a public servant.
Yes. But you see, if someone is a public servant, his social status that doesn't cease to exist.
Oh, sorry. It does, actually. You are a public servant. Believe me.
So
No, you see-
usikarange nyama kwako?
Unaweza kukaranga nyama kwako, lakini isiwe nono sana.
Hapana, kama uko na uwezo wa kukaranga hiyo nyama na uite marafiki, shida iko wapi?
You know, there's something, the reason why you're called a public servant is specifically this. Everything you do will be judged in the public domain. Everything. That is the tick that goes with this particular dog.
For
There's
example,
no escaping it.
Let's hear from Zachary as well in Nakuru. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
How are you?
It's been a while since I talked to you, although you ignore my voice.
We don't ignore your call, Zachary.
No, tell
Really?
Zachary.
Oh, yeah,
Zachary,
think I-
there are so
I
many
call-
other people who call. We know you
Hey.
you will understand even if we don't pick your call.
I do, Mwalimu. Mwalimu. Okay, now, I have been saying this, yeah? As long as the relationship between me and my representative is going to be based on, one, my poverty, and my illiteracy in terms of elections, we shall always have such conversations with lamenting about our poor leaders. There is the Bible says that it tries to actually tell us to hate riches, but do not think that being broke is your ticket to heaven. Yeah. So, but then look here. I don't blame the readers. I blame the electorate. I always, like the lady from Nakuru has said, yeah. If I do not have money to feed my kids, yeah. Even if the devil comes and offers me 5 shillings and tells me, "Can you bow?" I will do it because I want to save. I want to have food on the table to give to my kids in the evening. Is it
right?
At the same time, Mr. Eric, let me. And I've told you, I don't know how many times. Yeah. If you, Mr. Eric, at the Morim there, at the do there, and if my brother or sister was there, and I'm told among these people, whom do you think is best to actually head this program? Yeah. I've heard you, I've heard you, so I can rate you. I know I can do these marks. Eric, Mr. Latif, the agent provocateur, these marks, yeah? My brother, I've been with him since I was born, is it?
Right.
I won't qualify him just because he is my brother. I'll tell him, okay, you, my friend, okay, can you stay there? But this is the most qualified person,
So
isn't it?
you look at their competence.
Yeah, the competence. Now, we as directorate, do we vet those guys who come to us, regardless of the money they have? Yeah, but who has got ideas? And also, there is also this thing that I want to tell you. Okay, suppose Mr. Eric, it was you who had gone to Dubai. Would these guys, as an electorate of Mombasa, would these guys have spent all that money to hire a private jet to come and see you? So let us look at it this way. Why is Mr. Joho forced or feels that he must hire a private jet to go and see Mr. Laida, you know? So what is their relationship? Is he a god? Is Mr. Laida a god? You know?
Zachary, let me ask you a question. Who do you think needs the other more? Joho or Raila?
It is Laida who needs Joho more.
Okay.
But in this case, it seems that it is the picture now they have painted is that if you do not go to pay homage to the king, your goose is cooked. So why do we have to, and that is why the element of dynasties is coming in. That we have God who say that this is Mr. Okay, Mwalimu, you remember, Mr. Mwalimu, you remember that during the onset of the first multi-party election, is it? In fact, there was this narrative that even if a goat or a dog was donned with a Afodafiri T-shirt and he went to Central Province.
It is Kamodo. It is Kamodo. It is the former MP, Minister Kamodo who was credited with that particular saying.
Yeah, do you remember that? Yeah,
I recall very vividly. I even recall the originator of that statement.
Yeah, thank you, Mwalim. That is why I respect Walimus. Now, this is why we have to question ourselves that why do I have to make somebody there because he comes from this whatever, and now he is this.
So it's about the voter.
That I have to make him my God. Remember some professors saying that I cannot read the Constitution if so and so has read it. If he has read it, he has read it for me. Can you remember such a statement?
Yep.
Unless we eliminate such kind of thinking, and then we ourselves as, I start accounting myself as.
By the way, you are entering the realm of the choices that people make. Eh? If someone chooses to have the Constitution read for them, surely what wrong have they done?
Definitely. And
let them also accept that they have basically given up their right to question that Constitution.
Definitely. Yeah.
The reader is the only one.
There is one guy who says, you are the way you are because of the choices that you have made.
Sure.
Zachary, thank you very much.
Are you
very
going to have a good day?
We are going to have a good day. You too?
Day.
Thank you.
Have a good one. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation at 11 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's remind you about Captain Cargo, the new portal by Kenya Ports Authority, kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO.
Right, so many things happening here. So a war at this stage, and basically it's going to be before. Again, I think it's extremely important because people often ask themselves the question, okay, so my cargo is off on its way, it's left here, or it's on its way to me. What is happening in this time? When I've made the payments and I've spoken to my agent and et cetera, it needs to happen. And that's the part where people start to get nervous and start to ask themselves the question, did I pay somebody who doesn't exist? Or did my money kind of disappear and I'm not going to actually get my goods? So on this portal, you're then able to find answers to the questions that you might be looking for, who you can call, who you can email, who can send, information to you, what should be happening at a particular point in time, how many days this is all going to take, status quo being maintained. And so Captain Cargo has all that information for you.
www.kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. Okay, so Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho and Suna MP Junaid Mohammed decide they want to go and visit Raila Odinga in Dubai. He's been there recuperating after undergoing some minor operation. And they take photos and share. Junaid shares on his Facebook page. We are going to Dubai, off to Dubai to see Baba. And he basically just posts a number of photos there. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pictures. From a photo outside the plane into inside the plane where they're sitting, and you can clearly see it's a lovely, lovely private jet.
Even you.
Number of comments that this story elicits.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Very few of these comments are basically saying, why are you taking a private jet when Kenyans are doing it? Why are you spending lavishly when Kenyans? Many people
Spice up your life.
People in your county are really suffering. Many are just saying, we wish you well, Salimia Baba. Others referring to the joke that Junaid had made about kituona sisi kama ng'ombe tunafuata mchungaji. So saying the cows, we're wishing the cows a safe journey. It's the kind of... And then there was a whole debate about a certain handbag that was being seen in one of these photos.
A non-issue that has...
What percentage of our population are social media savvy?
There you go.
According to Google, just 17%.
So the majority of the people who actually suffer the brunt of this are actually not on social media.
No, they're not social media savvy at all.
What is social media savvy?
Meaning there are people who communicate, interact,
engaged on social media
regularly, and those are the people who will make such comments, because that is social media. And they are certainly not the sort of people who are represented and who need the sort of representation that I'm talking about. They don't need it because they're okay. It doesn't matter who's MP, they'll be fine. It doesn't matter who's governor, they'll be fine.
So then there's nothing wrong with Junaid posting this to that audience.
If you're not a public servant...
Because he is sharing this with that audience. That audience does not see a problem. That audience understands what is happening.
That audience has been so blinded to the fact that this is what people should actually be doing for you in positions of leadership. And so then by the time you see something like this, whereas you should be asking questions in terms of what has happened to our country in terms of development, in terms of what has happened for millions that have been taken away from the national purse over and over again, so blinded to those realities that the first thing that you see when you see a picture like this is not that you should be asking questions and actually putting the performance of some leaders to audit. The first thing that you want to do is actually worship this act. Omo, it's worse than it actually seems.
According to Google again and the research that they've done, I'll pause.
Nakuru, let's speak to Sami. Good morning, Sami.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well.
Yeah, I would like to put my contribution to the Joho thing. And it all lies into personal relationship as a friend. For me, I will do anything to my personal friend. And I will not judge what Joho used to travel to Dubai to see Raila. If the personal relationship is so strong and we all know where Raila has gotten Joho from, he will sacrifice anything. And it doesn't mean has to be the county funds. And you don't have to judge me for my personal relationship with personal development. Okay? Because it's better that he has done it into broad daylight than so many people who are doing into darkness. So that was a good thing to go and see him, and I have nothing really to judge him with that.
So
but
for you,
so
this is transparency on the part of the leaders. They're basically just showing this is how we are living our life.
Yes. And after all, they are earning. It's the same way like if Baba takes a private jet. For how many years has he been working? But we tend to see our leaders do not have salaries.
They don't deserve any life better than
They
ours.
don't deserve any life. But when we see Jimmy Wanjigi doing the rest of the stuff, we see okay, he's a businessman. But when our leaders live a good life, we see, this is public fund. But we forget these people are working, they have salaries, and have nothing really to judge them on that. Yes.
Thank you, Sami.
Thank you so much.
City, you were saying there's more data from Google.
Well, I was simply saying that according to data from Google, there's 7.7 million users of social media who have smartphones in this country.
Which year is this data?
This is 2016. Yes.
4 years is a big difference. That's why I asked you.
Which means there are more.
Yep.
So there'll probably be 10, and the population is even more from what it was. So proportionately, the difference may not have changed that significantly. That's what I'm trying to say. That a very small percentage of our population are actually social media savvy. That's what I'm trying to say. So if people saw whatever they saw on social media, they're the ones who will comment. Many of the people on social media are also aspirants to these lavish lifestyles. They are purveyors of this. There's something they would like to do. There's something that they would like to enjoy. So it is not possible for them to see anything wrong. But remember, somebody mentioned Jimmy Wanjigu, who's considered to be a very wealthy person. Someone like James Mwangi is considered to be a wealthy person. If they took a jet, nobody would ask.
Nobody would ask a question.
Because they're not in public.
Yes, thank you, Eric.
Until the moment, so you're saying that until the moment Dr. James Mwangi becomes an MP, we're okay.
James Mwangi is already rich. Everybody knows he's rich. He's got the money, and he's smart enough not to get into politics. Okay?
And this is why I started from it. It's the optics of it all. You take on, when you enter into a position of leadership, you take on a persona.
Public life.
You take on a persona that it's totally different from the way in which you would have been operating in the past. And I think you also go in with an acceptance of such, or should go in with an acceptance of such. Unfortunately, like I said, for most people who enter into public service, it is not a position of servitude.
Unfortunately as well, Ndu, the moment you become a public servant, an elected leader like this, and then you start going home in a dilapidated car,
Kenyans will judge you.
People will be talking. They'll be saying, come on, this guy, we elected him, look. In fact, when he was campaigning, he had a better car than now. They will not elect you again. That's the unfortunate side of it.
The example being given of Joho and Junet, my focus was not on Joho and Junet.
It's not even that they went to Dubai. That's not even the point. That's not even it.
I am simply saying this. You see, Raila happens to be in Dubai. People go to visit him. When he was in Upper Hill office, people also go to visit him. All right? Do you hear anybody pitching a fit about it? No. I am talking about conspicuous consumption when you're a public leader. It raises ethical and moral issues. That's what I am saying.
Good points. We're coming to the end of the show. Just remind us today's proverb.
Today's proverb. Slander by the stream rather, will be heard by the frogs. It's a Mozambican saying.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And from 7 to 9, we will also be on KTN Home. Right now, it's 10 o'clock. And we bid you goodbye. Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, and Eric Latif.